The new transfer student was an enigma. He moved like a shadow, his silence a fortress around him. Most students didn't even notice him, but the girls certainly did. One day, as he napped, they whispered about his striking looks, and one even stole a quick photo. She later approached him with a shy smile, showing him the picture. But that tender moment was shattered when her boyfriend stormed in. Seeing them together, he immediately started sneering at the new student, mocking his silence and his slender build. The girl brushed him off, telling Toksu that class was about to start. But later, Toksu's anger simmered as he saw his girlfriend fanning the new guy again. She didn't even spare him a glance. Sitting close to John, the sight made Two's blood boil, and he completely lost focus on his game. Smack. A ball slammed directly into his face. He let out a chilling laugh, his eyes fixed on the couple with a cold, hard stare. After the game, his pride demanded revenge. He dragged the kid who threw the ball and shaved his head, a brutal message to anyone who would dare embarrass him. By a twist of fate, that was the exact spot Jijeon chose to hang out, and he witnessed the entire cruel act. Realizing he'd been seen, Two threatened Jiun with the same humiliating fate. Yet, the main character didn't utter a single word, meeting his glare with unnerving calm. Two tried his best to provoke a reaction, but he couldn't get a hint of fear from him. Annoyed, he backed off, claiming he only did it to avoid drama with the school's girls. That night, as Jisun headed home, 2 students blocked his path. They had a message the girl's boyfriend wanted to see him. When Jason arrived, the boyfriend held up the girl's phone for him to see. The wallpaper was the secret photo she had taken of Jason. Panicked, she insisted it meant nothing and urged Jason to leave immediately. Consumed by rage, the boyfriend slapped her hard across the face, sending her to the ground. "Why are you defending him instead of me?" he roared. She stood her ground defiantly. "You dare call yourself my boyfriend when you're always out partying with other girls?" Enraged, he kicked her in the stomach. As he raised his hand to hit her again, Jason moved like a flash, blocking the blow. The boyfriend threw his strongest punch at Jason, but it was completely useless. He swung again, but Jason dodged effortlessly and delivered a single. Powerful strike. The impact sent him crashing to the ground. A stunned silence fell over everyone watching. The other bullies foolishly charged at Gizisnun, but he took them all down with ruthless efficiency. He then turned back to the boyfriend, unleashing a merciless barrage of blows until the girl cried out for him to stop. In that instant, she realized this quiet boy wasn't just silent. He was hiding a terrifying darkness deep inside him. The very next day, as she was leaving, she stumbled upon a disturbing scene. A group of boys had cornered Jizun, forcibly dragging him away to meet Tattoo. She froze, watching from a distance, her mind racing. Every instinct told her to run, but she found she couldn't just walk away. She made a snap decision and started to follow them. Gripping her umbrella tightly, she sprinted to a corner and hid, peering out from the shadows. What she saw made her blood run cold. Jason was unleashing a storm of kicks and punches on all of them. He fought like an animal unleashed, while the other boys screamed for him to stop. She was utterly paralyzed by the terrifying scene. After it was over, he walked away from the chaos, passing right by where she was hiding under her umbrella. Their eyes met for a brief, tense moment. She instinctively offered him shelter from the rain, but Jason simply turned his back and walked away, disappearing into the downpour. The next morning at school, everyone quickly noticed Two's empty seat. His absence wasn't strange, but Jason's absence, on the other hand, stirred up far more whispers. Yana's friend felt a wave of sadness, admitting that without Jason, the whole day felt empty. While they wondered about him, a different conversation was happening elsewhere. A witness to the fight was reporting the events to a dangerous-looking man. The man was shocked to hear that Toksu had been beaten so badly he was hospitalized. He immediately demanded to know his condition. The boy explained that Toksu had facial fractures and would be in the hospital for a while, refusing visitors because he was too humiliated. He also added that a total of 4 people had been injured. The man leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "Who in the world is strong enough to break Toksu?" The boy revealed the name Jason, a transfer student who never talks, a complete and total mystery. The man was furious. 4 of my men were taken down by one unknown kid. One of his henchmen grabbed the boy by the throat. And you just stood by and watched. Were you afraid of getting a scratch? The boy stammered that 5 against 1 seemed unfair, and that's why he didn't jump in. The henchman slammed him against a wall as the boss cut to the chase. Where did this Jason transfer from? The boy insisted no one knew, because Jason never, ever speaks. A loud slap echoed through the room. Useless, the boss snarled. He then demanded to know if this Jason had any distinguishing features, anything they could use to identify him. Looking embarrassed, the boy replied that Jason was handsome enough to be a model, incredibly popular with girls, and seemed to come from a wealthy family. As he raved about the young man's looks, the portly man struck him again, demanding to know if he was in love with the boy. Meanwhile, The boss was obsessed with unraveling the mystery of that silent transfer student, Jason, a fighter whose handsome face was a rare find. The man was completely lost in thought, pondering just how captivating Jisan was. The next day, as school life resumed, Jisan headed to his locker to drop off his things. From the shadows, an observer watched his every move, his mission to find out exactly what kind of person Jason was. Facing his boss's furious glare, he'd had no choice but to agree to investigate the new guy. But now, tasked with the actual mission, he was already regretting everything. Jason opened his locker, revealing a nearly empty space. Inside, a lone phone began to vibrate, its screen lighting up with messages. He picked it up, reading texts that congratulated him on receiving the phone completely free of charge. It was an old model, but XT Talk was active, and a mysterious contact promised to listen to any of Jason's concerns. The protagonist scanned his surroundings, sensing he was being watched. However, the two spies remained perfectly hidden. A nervous girl had planted the phone for Jason, her anxiety palpable. Yet, he seemed to completely ignore the gesture, leaving the device in the locker and walking away with unnerving calm. The boy watching him saw his chance, quickly snatching the phone Jason had abandoned. He immediately began inspecting the device to see if it was unlocked. Suddenly, a powerful shove from behind sent him crashing to the floor. The girl who had pushed him grabbed the phone and fled. The boy was left on the ground, completely stunned, wondering who that girl could possibly be. His confusion quickly turned to irritation. Why were all the bullies so aggressive these days? Yuri was telling Yana all about her aunt's poodle and its new puppies, explaining her plan to adopt one despite her father's disapproval. But she soon realized Yana wasn't listening, lost once again in her own world of thoughts. She asked if Yana was worried about Jason, since this was the second day he'd been absent. Just then, her friend's eyes went wide as she spotted him. There he was, with his perfect posture and a gaze completely devoid of life. The moment Yana saw him approaching, she froze. She shoved her belongings into her friend's arms and dashed toward Jason, pulling him into a tight embrace that shocked everyone who witnessed it. With tears welling in her eyes, she confessed how worried she'd been. She swore she would never, ever forget that he had saved her life. The boy observing from a distance smirked. His theory was correct. The girls were absolutely drawn to Jason. He took out his phone and made a new entry. Jason arrived a bit late. The girls adore him, but he still refuses to speak. As the day ended, Jason followed his usual path home from school. But this time, menacing figures were waiting for him. The moment they saw him, one of the thugs noted that he had an undeniable presence. He let out a sharp whistle to alert his partner. They closed in on their scooters, surrounding him in a clear attempt to intimidate him and block his escape. They asked if he was Jason, but true to form, the boy gave no answer. His silence, however, was all the confirmation they needed. The leader ordered him to get on the bike, announcing he was here to pick him up. He then asked Jisin if he'd ever heard of Kong Do-il from Daeso Technical High School. He explained that Kong Do-il became a legend in his second year, earning a spot in the school's top 3. Everyone knew his name. After all, Daeso Tech was in a completely different league than Jisin's school, which was nothing but a gathering of nerds. He sneered that Kang himself wanted to meet him, guaranteeing that for now, it was just an invitation. He wouldn't die today. But Jisan remained perfectly still, his lack of reaction infuriating them until they started screaming for him to get on the bike. One of the goons grabbed Jisan's backpack with a menacing look. Did he want to get on after they made it impossible for him to walk? Or would he get on while they were still being nice? Jason, however, simply let his backpack drop to the ground and continued walking. That blatant act of defiance enraged his attackers, who immediately gave chase. He ducked into the first narrow alley he could find. One of the riders misjudged the sharp turn and slammed right into the wall. The other, however, skillfully continued the pursuit. Not even a gigantic staircase could deter the pursuer, who revved his engine and shot straight up the steps. Just as he was about to catch Jason halfway up, the boy executed a simple kick, launching a trash bag directly into the rider's path. The impact sent the man and his motorcycle tumbling back down the stairs, crashing into his partner who had just recovered. Staring at the chaotic mess, one of the henchmen asked the other in complete disbelief, "What did you do?" They both scrambled to their feet and ran, desperately trying to catch their target, who was already disappearing into the distance. They saw him slip around another tight corner and surged forward to cut him off. But where Jason should have been, they were met with yet another colossal staircase. And there, halfway up the steps, was a boy in full retreat. When they finally cornered him, yanking him around, they saw it wasn't their target. The mistake sent a jolt of pure fury through their veins. Blinded by rage, they unleashed their frustration on the unlucky boy, whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time. As they rained down curses and blows, Jason watched from the rooftops above, a ghost disappearing back into the shadows. Back at the gang's hideout, the thugs reported their failure to capture Jason. The short-tempered enforcer roared, cursing their incompetence before kicking them to the ground. They both claimed the boy vanished into a maze of alleyways, making the chase impossible. The boss, Kang Doyle, admitted a knot of anxiety was tightening with every passing moment. He turned to Seung-min, demanding to know what he'd uncovered about Jizen. Sunung-min could only hand over his phone. Saying he'd dug up all he could, Kang Doyle glanced at the mere 3 lines of information, his voice dripping with venom. "You call this an investigation?" The hulking enforcer then slammed Sunung-min to the ground, forcing him to lie with the others. But the boss ordered them to let him go. With one condition, Sunung-min was to deliver Jizen to the back gate after school tomorrow. He stared down at Sunung-min. "Can you handle that?" Then, ordering Daishik to take charge of the capture, he declared, "I need to see Jizen by tomorrow, no matter what." The enforcer bowed, accepting the command without question. Meanwhile, Sunung-min was frozen in shock, realizing he was being dragged deeper and deeper into this dangerous mess. The next morning, Sunung-min was buying 2 sodas when a friend walked up. "Hey, is one of those for me?" Sunung-min shook his head. "No, why would it be?" His friend pressed on. "So who's the other drink for?" Just then, Jizen walked past. In that instant, Sunung-min knew this was his chance. He hurried after him, calling out from behind. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, holding out a soda. He quickly explained. "I needed to clear things up. It might look like I was with Talk's crew, but I barely knew them. Honestly," he continued, "on the day of the fight, watching Talk get destroyed without laying a finger on you, it felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders. So, I came to thank you." But Jizen offered no reaction at all, simply walking on as if he hadn't heard a word. Sunung-min expected as much from someone like Jizen. Now the real question was how to drag him to that back gate. The memory of the enforcer's fury was all the motivation he needed. The day wore on until lunchtime arrived. The classroom emptied out, but Jizen remained at his desk, lost in sleep. As Jizen finally stirred, Sunung-min watched him from the doorway's shadow. He finally understood why he'd never seen him in the cafeteria. The boy always prepared his own lunch. Jizen headed to his usual rooftop spot. As he sat down, his phone lit up with a message. "Bread for lunch again today." He instinctively ducked, searching for the sender. The one texting him was Aryam. Seizing the opportunity, the girl began sending a flurry of messages. "Do you always eat alone up here?" one read, quickly followed by, "I do, too." She explained, "I've seen you on the rooftop a few times. And because of that, I kind of wanted to talk." As Jizen scanned the area, another message appeared on his screen. "I'm on your left." He looked over and saw her shyly raise a hand before pulling it back down. Through the phone, she confessed, "It's still hard for me to face people directly. I heard you don't talk," she typed. "I'm the same way." A new message popped up. "So? What's your reason for being silent?" But just as Jizen was about to reply, a loud voice shattered the peace. It was Sunung-min, acting as if their meeting was pure coincidence. He announced he'd come up to eat his own bread, then asked, "Hey, what are you having?" Getting no response, Sunung-min sat down beside Jizen anyway. "Guess I'll eat with you." Then, a heavy, uncomfortable atmosphere fell over them as they ate in total silence. Suddenly, Sunung-min started whimpering, a soft sound that finally caught Jizen's attention. With tears in his eyes, he confessed that he didn't have any real friends. He only hung out with Taku's group because he was terrified of being an outcast. "Since we're both loners," he pleaded, "we should be friends." But Jizen's expression remained a blank slate. Sunung-min's desperate plan had failed completely. Not even his tears could move him. Our protagonist, Jizen, simply stood up to leave. But Sunung-min wasn't ready to let his effort go to waste. He grabbed Jizen's arm. "So, are we friends or not?" As expected, Jizen completely ignored the plea. He just walked away, leaving Sunung-min behind, grasping at empty air. A short while later, as the final bell neared, a message lit up Sunung-min's phone. It was Daishik. "Where are you, and why isn't Jizen here with you?" As the teacher dismissed the class, a desperate Sunung-min wondered how he could possibly pull this off. Giving up wasn't an option, so he immediately raced after his target. But he couldn't find him anywhere. Panic began to set in, his mind racing with the thought that Jihan had already left. Reaching the 5th classroom, he scanned the room frantically. And then he saw him a lone figure sitting by the window, calmly watching the world go by. It was like Jihan was posing for an ad before heading out. Just then, more messages from Daishik buzzed in, demanding to know what was taking so long, forcing Sunung-min to act, stealing his nerves. Sunung-min approached Jihan to begin his performance. He spun a pitiful tale about calling his mother, telling her he'd finally made a friend. He claimed she was so overjoyed. She begged him to bring his new friend to her workplace. Then came the desperate plea. "Can you come with me just to pretend you're my friend?" Sunung-min was certain that by using his mother as bait, even Jihan wouldn't have the heart to refuse. He anxiously awaited his answer. Jihan's silence was unnerving, but Sunung-min took it as acceptance. He quickly moved to his side, guiding him towards the planned route. "To get to my mom's job," he explained, "we have to use the back gate. It's a shortcut. Sunung Min knew full well that in this part of town, someone naive wouldn't survive for a second. He shot a quick text to Daeshik, letting him know they were heading for the back gate. Moments later, Daeshik appeared, slamming his shoulder into Jihan with brutal force. Jihan stumbled, nearly crashing to the ground, but Daeshik yanked him back by his backpack strap. "You should watch your step," he sneered. He leaned in close. "If you fold this easily, I don't see why the boss waited so long for you." With a grunt, he hurled Jihan against the wall like a sack of trash. "So, it's a pleasure to finally meet the quiet one." He grabbed Jihan by the throat, his voice dripping with menace. "You might have a handsome face, but from what I can see, your skills are nothing special." In a flash, Jihan planted his foot squarely on Daeshik's chest and kicked off, instantly breaking the chokehold. But as Jihan landed, the phone he'd won slipped from his pocket, skittering dangerously close to a storm drain. Enraged, Daeshik lunged again, roaring. "Is that all you've got?" A heavy punch flew, but Jihan crossed his arms to defend. Still, the raw power of the blow sent him sliding backward, even closer to the drain. In a split second, Jihan saw his chance. He snatched his phone from the very edge, saving it just before it could fall. Seething with hatred, Daeshik bellowed, "I'll annihilate you with the next blow." Unfazed, the young man rose to his feet, ready for the next round. Daeshik scoffed. "You really think that skinny body can handle this weight difference?" Meanwhile, watching from the shadows, Sunung Min was drowning in guilt. He had led Jihan into a trap, fearing the hulking Daeshik would crush him. Daeshik then charged at Jihan like a freight train. "Try and block this," he shouted. But the young man cleverly used his backpack as a makeshift shield. The impact was immense, slamming him back against the hard brick wall. Daeshik paused, surprised by the backpack defense, admitting Jihan was smarter than he looked. In response, Jihan quickly emptied the contents of his bag. "A cheap trick like that won't work twice," Daeshik roared as he rushed in again. But as the blow came, Jihan masterfully dodged aside. In one fluid motion, he looped the backpack strap around Daeshik's ankle and pulled with all his might, completely shattering his balance. The massive bully crashed to the ground like a fallen tree. Daeshik lay there, completely stunned, unable to process what just happened. As he struggled to rise, Jihan was already launching his next attack. A precise, powerful kick connected squarely with his opponent's face. The bully couldn't fathom where this skinny kid was drawing such incredible strength from. The boy in hiding watched in utter disbelief, his jaw on the floor, as Daeshik was completely overpowered. Daeshik was sprawled on the pavement, his face already beginning to swell and bruise. Jihan turned his back with a look of utter contempt, bending to retrieve his phone. But suddenly, Daeshik surged to his feet, screaming that the fight wasn't over. He landed a powerful sucker punch to Jihan's chest, sending him staggering to the ground. Snatching the phone, he held it up with a provocative smirk. "Is this little device really that important to you?" Daeshik sneered. "I just have to take you in, and I regret this." He knew Jihan had to be brought to his destination alive. Just then, the roar of an engine filled the air as an individual on a motorcycle pulled up beside them. Daeshik hopped on the back, calling out to Jihan, "If you want your phone back, come to Ali Park." As they sped away, he added that a special welcome was waiting for him. The terrified boy ran to Jihan's side to see if he was okay. To his astonishment, Jihan didn't have a single injury on him. He stammered, asking what Jihan would do now that they had his phone. He warned him, if there was any sensitive information on that device, his personal data and private life would be exposed. He would be in serious trouble. Jason's voice was firm. "My mother can wait, right now. I have to get to Ali Park." The setup was perfect. The other boy had played his part 120%. All that was left was to see if Jason would walk into the trap. Without a single word, our main character, Jason, rose to his feet and began his silent march. The observer's eyes widened in disbelief. He was really going just for a phone. Jason soon arrived at the base of a gigantic wooden staircase. He began his ascent, passing by shady-looking youths lining the way. As he neared the top, he saw a crowd of individuals waiting. There was no doubt about it. They were a gang, and they were all there for him. They parted, forming a human corridor. At its end stood their leader, a smirk playing on his lips. Satisfied that Jason had taken the bait, dangling Jazane's phone in the air, the leader taunted. "Is this what you came for?" Unfazed, Jason simply walked toward the man, his eyes locked on his phone. The leader chuckled. "I looked through it, nothing important, no phone numbers, no call history. Just a few texts from some girl who's watching you." The phone's contents were so simple, yet Jason had come this far for it. Intrigued, the leader demanded, "So what does this really mean?" Jason stopped right before him and held out his hand, a silent demand. The boss questioned, "Is she your girlfriend, or is this something new?" He confessed that this whole story was making him incredibly curious. Frustrated by the lack of answers, the leader quickly sent a message, setting another piece on the board. Elsewhere, Ariam received a text. It was from Jason's phone number. promising that if she came to him, she would become his girlfriend. If she ran there after reading that message, it would be undeniable proof of her feelings for Jason. The boss declared, "If they actually become a couple, you all owe me a sweet treat later." But Jason remained a statue of silence, his hand still extended, awaiting his phone's return. The assailant asked, "You want it that badly?" adding that his henchman had trouble luring him to this location.
That infamous Taksu, the boss mused, was always too reckless. Sooner or later, he was bound to get into trouble.
But despite everything, he remembered they had been classmates back in elementary school. Then he questioned him directly. "Are you willing to face the consequences?" Still, the boy remained silent. This brought a smile to the boss's face, impressed by his unwavering, mute resolve. The boss then made his offer. "If you can withstand my men," he explained, "I'll return your cell phone. As a transfer student, Jason, you probably don't understand the ferocious hierarchy battles in this neighborhood. By challenging Taksu, you threw your hat into the ring. Finally," he declared, "I'm waiting to see what you're capable of." Immediately, the burliest thug surged forward, his eyes burning with a thirst for revenge. He threw a heavy punch, but the boy dodged it with remarkable ease. The huge assailant roared in anger and bellowed to the others, "Get him! Use your fists!"
At his command, the entire pack charged. Yet even as Jason dodged their attacks, he refused to retaliate, merely intercepting their hands.
However, the sheer number of them was overwhelming. Some blows landed, though he managed to protect his face.
He staggered back and fell at an assailant's feet,
who then delivered a precise, brutal blow to Jazane's face. Once he was down, the others seized the opportunity, raining kicks down upon him. The boss simply watched the brutal assault, wondering why he only defended himself without ever fighting back.
He pondered if the reason was that the boy truly had no interest in the struggle for power.
One of the men beside the boss commented, "Even under a beating like that, he hasn't let out a single cry." He then asked, would he rather sacrifice his own life than make a sound? This silent defiance only fueled the boss's curiosity. He desperately wanted to hear Jazane's voice, to see if it matched his unyielding appearance. He then bellowed, "Whoever makes the boy scream gets a pair of limited edition Nike Air Jordan kicks as a prize." This promise whipped the gang into a frenzy. The aggressions intensified, but Jason only continued to defend himself. The boss roared, "Jason, show me your true power. Prove to me that you're a rare find." At that very moment, Daeshik appeared, ordering the others to back away. He kicked the downed boy and, in a challenging tone, asked where all the momentum Jazane had before had vanished too. Our protagonist collapsed, his face visibly disfigured. One of the aggressors, taking advantage of the moment, picked up a large rock. Turning to his boss, the thug vowed to make that pathetic wretch scream. He sneered, claiming he'd always hated Jazen's face and this was the perfect excuse. But the boss moved like lightning, kicking the man's hand and sending the stone flying. "Are you so eager to die that you'd lower yourself like this?" The boss snatched Jason by the collar, hoisting him eye to eye. "Why are you taking these hits with a smile? What secrets are you trying to protect?" He declared that this torment wouldn't end until Jason finally revealed his true power. Meanwhile, the traitor who'd sold Jason out watched from the shadows, observing the brutal scene unfold. He mused that, as expected, this crew was on a completely different level than Taksu's gang. Just then, his thoughts were shattered when he saw Ara heading straight for the confrontation. At that very moment, a vibration cut through the tension. It was the gang leader's phone. He glanced at the message. 2 words glared back, "Let Jason go." His eyes immediately scanned the area, hunting for the sender, and locked onto a girl standing defiantly, phone in hand. A cruel smirk spread across the boss's face. He leaned into Jason, his voice a low taunt. "Well, well, looks like your girlfriend's here. Maybe now you'll finally find a reason to fight back." With a lazy nod, the boss gave the signal. One of his thugs immediately peeled off to approach the girl. He waved a phone in the air, barking at her to get over here. But she was lost in her own world, typing a message, unaware of the shadow creeping up beside her. A hand suddenly clamped down on her arm. The thug's eyes widened, a predatory gleam appearing as he took in her beauty. She tried to wrench herself free, but his grip was like iron. "And where do you think you're going?" he sneered, watching from behind a tree. The young man was paralyzed. His crush was in trouble. But raw terror kept him rooted to the spot. A powerless coward. The thug dragged the girl toward the circle of delinquents, telling her she needed a good look at what they'd done to her little boyfriend's face. He then shoved her forward, presenting her to the leader of the gang. For a tense moment, Ariam and Jisun locked eyes, a flicker of recognition passing between them. Caught in the middle was the girl, her arm already bruised, her face pale with fear. Her sudden appearance sent ripples of amusement through the henchman. The stocky thug jeered, asking if she came all this way to be the scoundrel's girlfriend. "Too bad," he laughed. "He's a little busy right now." "Is that why you're here to play girlfriend to that loser?" the thug continued. "Jason is a frustrating punk, and he's finally getting the lesson he deserves. The girl quickly typed out a message, trying to defuse the situation. "He's just a friend. Please, let him go." But the boss only sneered at her silence.
"And why aren't you speaking?" he taunted. "What's your name?"
When she didn't answer, he noticed a chilling link between the two of them. Absolute silence. The entire group erupted in mockery. "They only talk through texts. What a bunch of freaks." The boss made a proclamation, turning it into a cruel game for his underlings. "I don't care who does it," he declared, "but someone make them talk. There's a reward in it for you." The chubby thug chimed in. "Does that apply to the girl, too?" The boss confirmed with a wicked smile. In an instant, the thugs surrounded the girl, their intentions turning sinister. "If you can't talk," one snarled, "you can't say no." They grabbed her arms while another yanked her hair. And Jason? He just stood there, watching it all unfold. "What will you do now?" the boss mocked. "Just stand there and take it," all while his men continued to torment the girl. One of them grabbed her face. "Why are you keeping your mouth shut?" he growled, trying to force a sound from her. Suddenly, one of the thugs harassing the girl was sent flying. Jason looked over, and in that split second of distraction, a fist crashed into his face. The man in the hat roared, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" But his victory was short-lived. A single, brutal punch sent him crumpling to the ground, already unconscious. A thrill shot through the boss. Finally, Jason was getting serious. After shoving her attackers away, Jason unleashed his fury on the others. The girl could only watch, paralyzed by fear. The entire gang charged in to overwhelm him. Punches rained down, but he grabbed one thug by the leg and launched him into the crowd. Another man jumped on him from behind. Jason reacted instantly, grabbing him by the hair and delivering a series of devastating blows to his face. A kick flew his way, but he dodged with ease, seized the attacker's leg, and slammed him mercilessly to the ground. At that moment, the chubby man barreled towards Jason, roaring, "I'll put an end to this." It was Daishik. At the same time, the man whose leg Jason held screamed for him to let go. A vicious kick slammed into the man's chin, instantly knocking him cold. Gizi-san then spun away, fluidly evading Daishik's incoming punch. Daishik attempted his descent, but Gizi-san used his leg as a springboard, launching a devastating knee straight into Daishik's face. The assault wasn't over. He followed up instantly, slamming the sole of his foot into his opponent's jaw. Watching from the sidelines, the boss's interest ignited, realizing this young man was a true diamond in the rough. Back in the brawl, the two fighters clashed. Daishik, fueled by desperation, latched onto Jason with every ounce of his strength, already tasting his own blood. Pure rage exploded within him. Humiliated a second time, Jason raised his arms high, bringing his elbows down like hammers. They crashed into his eyes. Again and again, the brutal elbow strikes rained down, shattering teeth until Daishik's world went black. The entire crowd froze in absolute shock. No one could believe their eyes. The invincible Daishik had been utterly defeated. But Jason's war was far from over. He turned on the rest of the gang, a whirlwind of fists and feet, and one by one, they all hit the floor. All the while, the gang leader simply observed, a grin spreading across his face. The boy's talent was far more captivating than he'd ever imagined. Desperate, one of the thugs made a cowardly move. He seized Ariam, his hand tightening around her neck, trying to use her as a hostage. That single image shattered the protagonist's composure, as a dark memory from his past came rushing back. A woman in a cap, held captive, her screams for help echoing in his mind. A new, terrifying rage ignited in Jizusan's eyes as he stalked toward them, ignoring the thug's warning. Another fool tried a sneak attack from behind, but with a single, brutal elbow strike, Jizusan sent him crashing to the pavement. He then launched himself forward, closing the distance to Ari's captor in a heartbeat. The man shrieked, pure terror twisting his features, but his scream was cut short by a fist smashing into his face. Even as he collapsed, Jason showed no mercy, raining a relentless storm of punches down on the fallen thug. Finally, the leader stepped in. "That's enough," he commanded, telling Jason to take back his phone, admitting he had earned it. Then came the offer. The boss invited Jisan to join his crew, declaring that when he sees something he wants, he always takes it. But the boy's fury wasn't spent. He left the battered thug on the ground and turned his burning gaze on the gang leader himself. For the first time, a flicker of fear showed on the boss's face. "What are you doing?" he stammered. "The fight is over." He demanded that he stop, questioning the meaning of that murderous look. But Jason was beyond words and swung a powerful fist. However, in a shocking turn, the boss dropped into a perfect fighting stance. He dodged the punch with impossible grace, leaving Jason stunned. The leader countered with a single, precise blow to the chin. The impact sent Jason flying backward, his consciousness fading as he hit the ground. The boss simply looked down at him. "I told you to stop." The boy lay motionless on the cold ground, utterly silent. "Think carefully about my offer," the leader said. "I'll be back for your answer." He tossed the phone onto his chest, then summoned his crew. "We're leaving." As they left, one of them whispered, "Who the hell was that guy? Is the boss seriously gonna recruit that mute psycho?" Another questioned as they descended the stairs. He shuddered, adding, "The way his eyes rolled back, it was terrifying." But the leader was lost in thought. He had dodged the punch, yes, but in that split second, the kid had adjusted, managing to graze his cheek. That instinct, that raw talent for finding an opponent's weakness, was the mark of a true fighter. This revelation only strengthened his resolve. He had to have that boy in his crew. Meanwhile, Jisun and Ariam were left alone. He collapsed onto a nearby bench, the adrenaline finally fading. Ariam watched him, her face etched with worry. Then, without a word, she suddenly turned and ran off. At that exact moment, Jisun's phone buzzed to life. A message from the girl appeared she had gone to buy medicine and would be right back. He looked down, remembering that she was only in this mess because of him. After a moment of silent thought, he made a decision. He placed the phone on the bench and walked away.
But they weren't alone. A student hiding in the shadows was terrified, believing that if it had been one-on-one, Jisun would have crushed them all. Someone truly remarkable had transferred to his school. As he crept past the bench, he spotted Jisun's phone. Glancing at the screen, he saw the messages from Aram. From the way she wrote, he could tell she had feelings for him. Just then, he spotted her in the distance, returning with medicine. His mind raced. What was he supposed to do in a situation like this? Giving in to his cowardly nature, he made his choice and fled. When the girl arrived, she found the bench completely empty. The boy ran without looking back. As he fled, the phone in his hand buzzed again with another message. Greater than, greater than. They were from Ariam. "I bought the medicine, but you're gone. Are you okay? Are your injuries bad, model?" Sunung-min was baffled by Jiseon's stone-cold indifference. The girl was clearly worried, yet Jiseon hadn't even picked up the phone. Sunung-min hesitated, completely unsure of what to do. Messages kept flooding in, the girl revealing her name and class. She thanked him for his help and asked if they could start talking. Sunung-min was tormented by the choice before him. Should he reply or just ignore her completely? Even considered pretending to be Jiseon, just for a little while. Then, a new message suddenly appeared on the girl's phone. She stared in disbelief. A reply had actually come through. It was a single, simple word, yes. The very next day, Sunung-min showed the incredible footage to his friend. The video showed Jiseon taking on an entire gang by himself. His friend scoffed. "Wasn't that the loser you called unlucky?" Sunung-min could only agree, still shocked he'd seen it all unfold in person. His friend grinned. After this, Jiseon's popularity was going to explode. Sunung-min seethed with irritation. His crush, Ari, seemed completely smitten with that bastard. And to make matters worse, Jiseon was shutting this other girl down, leaving Sunung-min utterly clueless on how to proceed. As Sunung-min was lost in his thoughts, his friend declared, "If we post this on YouTube, it'll get millions of views. I'm taking this." The friend bolted, and Sunung-min gave chase, shouting, "Give me back my phone." In his haste, he slammed right into someone, knocking a tie clip to the floor. He quickly apologized. He had just run into Kim Jin-woo, a second-year student, and the undisputed number 2 at Baekdong High. Recognizing him instantly, Sunung-min scrambled to pick up the clip. "I'll fix it right now," he stammered, his hands trembling as he put it back. A sharp slap cracked across Sunung-min's face. Without another word, Kim Jin-woo turned and walked away. His hulking associate glared at Sunung-min. "Watch yourself." His friend ran up, asking if he was okay. Annoyed, Sunung-min shot back that he'd been hit because of him. His friend commented that getting away with just a single slap was actually a miracle. After all, that monster was infamous for his brutality. "These guys are all insane fighters," he muttered. Then, his friend pointed out something far more important. Yena was approaching Jiseon, asking what happened to cause all the bandages on his face. The main character's rising fame was like a thorn in Sunung-min's side. Both Ari and Yena were clearly captivated by him. Speaking of Ari, she was walking past at that very moment. Sunung-min tried to act sympathetic, but she didn't give him a second glance and continued on her way. It was painfully obvious. To get close to her, he first had to get close to Jiseon. While Sunung-min was lost in his schemes, his so-called friend was hiding, uploading the video of Jiseon's legendary brawl to YouTube. Elsewhere, bullies were tormenting the kid whose hair had been shaved by Deoksu. They had drawn a face on the back of his head, mocking him that he looked more handsome now. Go-eun was miserable, but their cruelty wasn't over. One of the thugs sneered that from now on, he was only allowed to walk backward. Terrified of another beating, the boy obeyed. He stumbled blindly, guided by the two tormentors. Suddenly, he ran out of ground. His balance vanished as he began to plummet down a flight of stairs. Just as his back was about to smash into the steps, an arm shot out and caught him, saving the boy from a serious injury. It was Jiseon. Yena, who was with our protagonist, asked if Go-eun was all right.
but when she saw the back of his head, she couldn't suppress a laugh. Even as he explained his situation,
Stifling her giggles, Yina apologized to the humiliated Go-eun.
as expected, Jiseon found nothing funny about the cruel prank. In his heart, Go-eun was eternally grateful. Later, in the school gym, a secret fight club was in session. While one student stood guard, 2 others battled inside, surrounded by a roaring crowd. It was a full-blown spectacle. Money was even changing hands as students placed bets on the outcome. Kim Jin-woo watched, bored, until a lackey rushed over and showed him a video on his phone. It was the clip of Jiseon's fight, posted by Sunung-min's friend. With every passing second, the view count skyrocketed.
Is this kid from our school? Kim Jin-woo asked. He was told it seemed likely, given the identical uniform. They were both floored by the fighter's skill, but the video was too blurry to make out his face.
If he was really a student here, this would be a game changer, Kim Jin-woo demanded. Does anyone know of a recently transferred student? A boy spoke up, mentioning the quiet kid in the next class over, from class 5. Rumor had it that Deoksu was in the hospital because of this new guy, but no one dared speak of it openly, so the details were murky. Kim Jin-woo's eyes lit up. He beat Deoksu. He ordered one of his cronies to find out everything about this transfer student. He seemed like a very interesting find. At lunchtime, some guys called out to Go-eun to join them. He quickly made a lame excuse. The moment Jiseon left the classroom, Go-eun latched onto him, holding out some bread he'd bought. Can we eat together? He asked.
With Jason giving neither a yes or a no, Goman decided
To tag along, declaring they'd eat together from now on. When they reached the rooftop, Sunung-min was already there, waiting. But seeing Goman right beside Jason, he was completely baffled by the situation.
While one claimed he was there to eat with Jason, the other explained he had the very same idea.
As Sunung-min turned to the main character, he noticed the strange markings on Goman's head and burst out laughing, calling him a natural comedian. But Goman shot back, saying this wasn't a joke. He explained these marks were the scars of school violence, a grim reality that couldn't just be hidden away. You can't just run from the truth, he declared, asking Sunung-min to take a picture. Confused by the request, the boy complied anyway. Just as he was snapping the photo, a phone vibrated from inside Sunung-min's pocket. It was Jason's. Stepping away from the others, he told them to start eating without him, promising he'd be right back.
He pulled out the phone and saw a message from Aryam, wishing Jason a good lunch.
However, he foolishly thought the message was for him. He texted back, wishing her the same, a single reply that made the girl's day. Suddenly, the rooftop door slammed open. Startled, Sunung-min saw Jamin standing there and demanded to know what he was doing. Jamin ignored him, walking straight toward Jason, saying he'd heard this was where the quiet kid spent his lunches. He confirmed the rumors were true. Then, closing the distance, he held out his phone, showing the fight video and asking if that was really him.
Sunung-min's heart sank. He couldn't believe his friend actually posted that video on YouTube.
Go-man demanded to know what was going on. Jamin sneered, saying rumors were flying, and he wanted to see Jason's skills for himself. But Jason's silence only stoked his rage. His fist clenched. Jamin snarled, asking if he was deaf. He threw a wild punch, but Jason dodged it with unnerving calm. More and more fists flew, but every single one met nothing but empty air. Fueling his fury, he then spat that if Jason wouldn't even stand up, he'd be beaten right where he sat. He lunged with another punch, but the boy swayed aside once more. In a flash, Jason countered with a precise, lightning-fast kick to his attacker's shin. The impact shattered his balance, sending him stumbling forward uncontrollably. Then, Jamin crashed face-first into the hard edge of the bench. A raw scream of agony tore from the bully's throat. As Jamin howled, Jason stared down at him with a look of pure, icy contempt. Blood streamed from his face. The impact had shattered his nose. Looking up at Jason, Jamin felt a crushing pressure emanate from the boy, an overwhelming and terrifying aura. Gripped by absolute fear, he scrambled away and fled. The other two could only watch, stunned by how fast he disappeared. Gumon, completely bewildered, asked Jason what in the world he was, calling his very existence unnatural. That's when Sunung-min revealed the truth. Jason was the one who put 2 in the hospital. The revelation only made Guman admire him even more. But Sunung-min warned him that Jamin showing up was a very bad sign. He explained that Jamin was part of Kim Jin-woo's crew, and when Kim Jin-woo finds someone with skill, he drags them into brutal, forced fights. It was clear now, Jason had become his next target. Sunung-min also mentioned that some people volunteer for these fights to make money, and that a guy like Jason could easily make a fortune. Outraged, Goman yelled at him for spewing such nonsense. And since Jason wouldn't speak, he declared he would refuse the offer for him. He could tell Jason had no interest in fighting or throwing his weight around. Goman then proudly named himself Jason's official voice, claiming that as his friend, he had every right to speak on his behalf. Sunung-min, however, scoffed at their so-called friendship, but Goman passionately insisted it was real. Back in the classroom after lunch, Jason's arrival sent a shockwave through the room. Classmates swarmed him, phones out, showing him the video. They begged him to at least nod if it was really him. But Goman stepped in, telling them to back off and that if they had something to say, they had to go through him first. His intervention just annoyed everyone, and they began to crowd around Jason.
At that exact moment, the door was thrown open with a violent bang. Kim Jin-woo himself stormed into the classroom. He stopped and scanned the room, his voice low and dangerous, asking who the
Everyone froze, afraid to point Jason out. But Goman, standing defiantly by his side, drew all the attention. Kim Jin-woo's cold gaze landed on the pair. As he approached, Goman instinctively shielded Jason with his own body. Kim Jin-woo stopped, asking what he thought he was doing. Though clearly nervous, Goman stood his ground. He declared himself Jason's representative and said that Kim Jin-woo had to speak to him first. One of Kim Jin-woo's massive henchmen sneered, asking Goman who the hell he thought he was. But Goman stood his ground, insisting all communication go through him. A sharp slap echoed as the henchman called him an idiot. As Goman fell, he revealed a crude face drawn on the back of his neck. Grabbing Goman by the collar, the thug lifted him, sneering that this bastard was actually pretty funny. Suddenly, as if pulled by an invisible string, Jason rose to his feet. Kim Jin-woo's eyes narrowed. "So you're the bastard who broke Jamin's nose." Silence was the only reply. Kim Jin-woo slid a business card forward, asking if Ji-san had ever heard of his academy. He mentioned sending Ja to extend an invitation, but since that failed, he decided to come in person. Seeing the complete lack of interest on the boy's face, Kim Jin-woo changed his strategy. He smirked. "Tell me, you like making money, don't you?" But just then, Goman struggled up, cutting into their conversation. He declared that Jason had zero interest in fighting and would never go to the arena. Fed up with the interruption, Kim Jin-woo unleashed a brutal kick, sending Goman flying backward. Goman crashed violently into a pile of chairs. Kim Jin-woo loomed over him and questioned. "Don't you know your place?" He then asked. "Why are you playing the fool and getting between us?" He roared at him to stay down and shut up, then began to viciously stomp on Goman's defenseless body. While Kim Jin-woo continued his assault, a hand suddenly gripped his shoulder, forcing him to turn. The two locked eyes in a tense standoff. Kim Jin-woo warned him, "Get your hand off my shoulder. I hate it when anyone touches me." Instead, Jason's grip only tightened, a flicker of genuine surprise flashing in Kim Jin-woo's eyes. The massive henchman charged forward, roaring for Jason to get his filthy hands off Kim Jin-woo. Jason dodged the incoming punch with effortless grace and countered with a precise knee to his opponent's face. Blood sprayed as the thug screamed in agony. The man stumbled backward through tables and chairs, but he refused to accept defeat so easily. He grabbed the nearest chair, preparing to throw it, and declared, "Jason, you're finished." With unbelievable ease, Jason vaulted over the projectile, landed silently on a table, and launched his counterattack. He ran
forward and delivered a swift kick to his opponent's face, dropping him to the ground as if he were nothing.
The boy stood atop the table, radiating an intense aura that confirmed to every classmate watching. The video they saw was absolutely real.
Furious, the bulky student struggled to his feet, hoisting a table over his head and howling with rage, swearing he would kill Jason.
At that exact moment, the teacher entered the classroom. Seeing the chaos, he demanded an explanation, reprimanding them for fighting and questioning why Jason was standing on a desk. Kim Jin-woo smoothly intervened, claiming it was all just a harmless prank to cover for them. He turned to Goman, calling him his agent, and warned that he would call him to speak with Jason. He strode to the exit, tapping the teacher's shoulder and telling him to start the class. Later, after school, Goemon relived the entire event for Sunem, describing it like a movie scene where no one could even touch Jason. The story was spreading. Sunem was crushed that he didn't see it live and asked why Jason hadn't left yet. Goen explained that the teacher made him stay, even though he wasn't the one who started the fight. A conflict of this scale inside school grounds could cause massive problems. While his friends worried about his fate, the teacher offered Jason a cup of green tea in the staff room. Though its taste wasn't popular with kids his age, it served as a quiet start to a serious conversation. The teacher commented on how the atmosphere at this institution was a world away from Ji-san's previous school. He revealed that when the boy's father announced the transfer, he was firmly against it, fearing Ji-san's adaptation would be impossible, especially knowing he didn't speak. However, he felt humbled by the immense trust placed in him. The teacher continued, recalling the last time he saw Jason, about 4 years ago, when he was just an elementary schooler. He vividly remembered the boy training with incredible and powerful movements. At the time, Jason's father introduced him as a friend, and the young boy had greeted him with perfect manners. The teacher found it astonishing that his father had transformed part of their own house into a private academy for his son. He recalled how, after training, they went for a drink to celebrate their reunion, and how Jason was such a brilliant young man. The teacher admitted he had no idea what happened in the years between for Jason to end up in such a wretched place. He warned that while he could speak to the other teachers, Jisun would have to deal with the students on his own. He concluded by saying that the reason his father raised him to be so strong wasn't just to train his body. It was so that one day, he would find the strength to overcome his silence. As they all headed home, a sudden rain began to fall. Kyung-min told his classmate that his real concern now, Sung-min, was with Kim Jin-woo, racking his brain for a way to get Jiseon's attention. Just then, a message buzzed on the phone he'd snatched from Jiseon earlier. It was from Ariam, her name lighting up the screen. Her text was simple. "Do you have an umbrella?" Confused, he typed back, asking why. Her reply made his heart sink. Sung-min rushed to the spot, a bitter scene already playing out in his mind. And just as he feared, there she was, holding an umbrella, waiting for Jiseon. A storm of doubt and jealousy raged within him. The thought of Jiseon and Ariam huddled together under one umbrella was unbearable. But then, a wicked idea sparked in his mind. With a newfound purpose, he dashed off to find Jiseon. Ariam waited, the rain starting to fall, until Sungmin's voice cut through the air. "Jiseon in tow." Putting on his best act, Sungmin feigned surprise. "Oh no, Jiseon," he exclaimed. "Looks like I forgot my umbrella too." He then pretended to just notice Ariam, acting clueless, but his scheme was shattered when she reached into her bag, pulled out a second umbrella, and offered it directly to Jiseon. Sungmin's perfect plan was crumbling before his very eyes, but he wasn't about to give up that easily. He could see it clearly her gaze was fixed only on Jiseon. With a desperate move, he stepped in, intercepting the umbrella. Snatching it from her hand, he offered a weak thank you. "We were just heading somewhere," he lied. "There's a new arcade on Main Street." Seizing the opportunity, he quickly invited her to join them. Meanwhile, miles away, Goemin was sprinting home through the downpour. But as he cut through a dark alley, shadows emerged to block his path. It was Jaemin, his nose still crooked from Jiseon's punch, and the thug he'd humiliated in class. Terror seized Goemin. "What do you want?" he stammered. Jaemin sneered. "You call yourself his agent, right? We have a message for your client, Jiseon." And with that, the two thugs unleashed their fury on the defenseless boy. Every blow meant as a brutal message for Jiseon. Jaemin loomed over him, promising this was just the beginning. "Repeat the message," he snarled. Through the pain, Goemin choked out the words. "The message is for Jiseon to participate." "Not good enough." Another vicious kick landed. "Louder and with feeling," the thug demanded, tears streaming down his face. Goemin promised he'd tell Jiseon. The aggressor then leaned in close, his voice a venomous whisper. "Ever heard of a quick access penalty? One wrong move, and you're dead." But just then, a calm voice cut through the tension. Kim Jin-woo appeared from the shadows, stepping between them. "That's enough," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Jin-woo coolly took out a business card and placed it in Goemin's trembling hand. "Tell Jiseon," he said, "that he has a personal invitation to the combat kennel." And with that, the three predators vanished, leaving Goemin battered and alone. Meanwhile, completely oblivious, Sungmin was at the new arcade, fiercely challenging our protagonist to a game, while Sungmin played with a fiery desperation to win. Jiseon seemed almost bored by the whole affair. Sungmin unleashed what he thought were his best moves. Trying to impress Ariam, he fancied himself a master, right up until Jiseon effortlessly scored the first point. Hiding his shock, he pretended it was all part of the plan. "All right, warm-up's over," he declared, diving back into the game with renewed focus. But our protagonist simply responded with cold precision, scoring another point without even breaking a sweat. Stunned by this hidden talent, Sungmin's pride kicked in. "Okay, no more holding back," he yelled, trying to save face. It made no difference. The match ended in a brutal defeat, with an overwhelming score of 13-0. Jiseon hadn't allowed him a single point. Desperate, Sungmin invited Ariam to play next. His new plan let her experience Jiseon's cold indifference firsthand and hopefully be turned off. But as they began to play, something changed. Jiseon's movements were gentle, his pace slower. Ariam scored her first point, and Sungmin exploded. "What happened to the pro gamer from before?" he raged internally. Ariam, now fully into the game, scored yet another point against him. Defeated again, they moved on to the claw machines. Here, Sungmin thought, his luck was bound to change. But after agonizing try, he came up empty. "Just one more," he pleaded with Ariam, certain he'd get it this time, only to fail once again. Frustration boiled over as he declared the machine was rigged. And right beside him, with a single, calm attempt, Jiseon won a bear, holding two identical prizes. He simply turned and handed one to Sungmin, and the other to Ariam. Mortified, Sungmin mumbled his thanks. while a single crushing thought echoed in his mind. Is there anything Jiseon can't do?
Completely fed up, Sungmin decided it was time for his final trump card. He dragged them both to a karaoke bar.
Convinced of his amazing singing voice, he grabbed the mic and belted out a song, hoping to finally capture Ariam's attention. But his performance was less a concert and more of a train wreck. Through it all, Ariam just quietly clutched the plush bear, a gift from the boy she actually liked. Reaching the peak of his vocal disaster, Sungmin choked and made a hasty retreat to find some water. And just like that, Jiseon and Ariam were alone. A heavy, awkward silence filled the room.
Ariam shyly pulled out her phone, texting Jiseon a thank you for the bear. But then, her phone began to ring. The name on the screen sent a jolt of panic through her. It was her father.
She shot up from her seat and rushed for the door. But in her haste, she collided with a man, sending hot coffee splashing all over him. "Watch where you're going," the man roared at her. His anger flared even hotter when, in her panicked state, she forgot to apologize. Sunung Min returned, only to walk into a scene of chaos as he tried to step in. "She your girlfriend or something?" the bully sneered. "We're just classmates," Sunung Min stammered. The man then cruelly poured the rest of the coffee on the girl's head. And, as expected, the cowardly Sunung Min did nothing. But then, a new figure stepped in. Jisun's hand clamped down on the man's arm. Stunned, he snarled, "What the hell do you think you're doing?"
Our protagonist answered with action, sweeping the man's legs and dropping him like garbage. When his friend lunged in, a single punch sent him crashing to the floor.
In a blur, Ariam saw both men fall. Jisun grabbed her arm, pulled her up, and the two made a run for it to escape any more trouble. Sunung Min was left behind, frozen, as the bully glared at him. "You a friend of theirs?" Without a word, the boy fled, desperate to avoid getting involved. He snatched his backpack and his teddy bear, then vanished. Reaching the street, he saw the pair hurrying down the stairs. He shouted after them, hoping to get their attention, but his voice was lost to the wind. They simply continued on their way. Watching them from afar, Sunung Min was captivated by the perfect picture they made together. Jisun had saved Ariam when it mattered most, while Sunung Min could only see himself as a pathetic, cowardly loser. To a girl like her, he was just a background character, an NPC, walking home with his head hung in shame. He heard someone call his name. It was Guan, crumpled in a corner and clearly injured. As Sunung Min approached, Guan cried that he wasn't qualified, that he had failed his duty as Jisun's spokesperson. Sunung Min asked the obvious question, was it Jinwoo's gang? Guan confirmed it through his tears. Admitting his own fear kept him from delivering the message for Jisun to join the dogfight. In that moment, Sunung Min realized Guan was no different from him. They were both living the lives of cowards. He helped the boy up and started walking him home. "What are we going to do now?" Guan asked. Sunung Min replied, "If Jisun really sees us as friends, he'll help." Meanwhile, Jisun and Ariam walked on, his hand still holding hers, until he finally let go. They fell into step beside each other. As rain began to fall, she opened an umbrella to shield them both. Nearby, Yina saw the two of them walking so closely together. The intimate sight left her completely speechless. "Did something happen?" her friend asked. Yina forced a casual smile. "It's nothing." Her friend hurried her along, but as Yina walked away, the image of those two under the umbrella was burned into her mind. At that moment, Ariam's phone buzzed again with notifications, but she completely ignored them, lost in the moment. Once they arrived in front of her apartment building, she stopped and pulled out her phone. She texted Jisun that this was her place, handed him the umbrella, and said a quick goodbye. Then she skipped away, euphoric from the time spent with her crush. As Jisun turned to leave, he felt a light touch on his shoulder. He turned back to see her smiling, holding up her phone which read, "Thank you so much for today." The girl ran back inside, her heart racing. As the elevator carried her up, she watched Jisun's figure slowly disappear down the street, but the sudden click of a lighter startled her. She looked to the side. A man was there, smoking. His gaze locked onto her. "What kind of nonsense was that?" he asked coldly. Ariam froze, her head bowed in silence. The next day at school, Sunung Min laid into Guan for his betrayal. The boy could only tremble with overwhelming regret. "I deserve to die," he whispered. Sunung Min continued his verbal assault, his words secretly meant for Jisun to overhear. "So, when is Jisun supposed to be in this fight?" he demanded from the so-called spokesperson. Guan revealed the time Saturday night, at 9 p.m. in the gym. He added that if Jisun didn't show, the gang would kill him. The two desperately tried to explain how serious the situation was, but the main character simply turned and walked away. They could only wonder if he would actually go. Guan was completely shattered, convinced that all hope was now lost.
On Saturday night, the fight club was electric. Competitors clashed in the ring, trading vicious, powerful blows.
With every brutal impact, the audience absolutely roared. Sunung Min and Guan watched in horror. They couldn't believe this was happening inside a school, and they prayed Jijun would show. All around them, the crowd was ecstatic. A savage exchange of punches exploded between the two fighters. Every time one of them showed an opening, the crowd screamed for the other to seize the chance. Feeding on that energy, the fighter landed his blows with deadly precision. Meanwhile, from a private box, a man watched everything on his monitors. Finally, that match came to its bloody conclusion. Now, it was time for the main event. The man wondered if Jijun would truly appear. He knew the boy acted quiet and gentle, but he also knew the terrifying truth. Deep down, he was a fighter. He weighed his options, Lee Tae-eung or the enigmatic Jiseon. The transfer student's abilities were a mystery, but Tae-eung was a proven hunting dog. Just then, his phone shattered the silence. A call from the gate informed him a student was there, refusing to answer any questions. The teacher knew instantly. It had to be Jiseon. He gave a simple order, let him in. Through the window, he watched the young man approach. He had to admit, the boy's courage was impressive. The courage of a sacrificial lamb walking to the slaughter. The preliminary fight wrapped up, with Min Chul as the victor. But Kim Jin-woo only had one question. Where was Jiseon? With the main event looming, his lackeys pressured the other students. If Jiseon didn't show, his two friends would have to face Taeyong themselves. At that very moment, the heavy gym doors swung open. Every head turned, a wave of curiosity washing over the crowd. And there he stood, Jiseon, the transfer student. A ripple of disbelief spread through the gym. Even his own friends were stunned by his arrival. They rushed over, overcome with relief that he'd come to save them. Kim Jin-woo smirked. Jiseon had appeared right on time, like a specter. He announced he'd been waiting for a long, long time. He declared that if Jiseon won, his backers would hit the jackpot. But a mere 10% of the bets were on his name. Then came the twist. He revealed that he, too, had bet on Jiseon. In his eyes, Jiseon was a beast starved for a real hunt. He challenged the young man to finally unleash his true potential. The two fighters faced off, a silent battle raging in their eyes as they tried to size each other up. Taeyong finally pulled off his headphones. "So you're the transfer student?" he asked. He tossed them to someone in the crowd and ordered, "Play that song!" Tearing off his shirt, he roared, "It's showtime!" The two warriors took their stances, ready for war. The first exchange was a blur of motion, but Jiseon weaved through every single blow. He fired back with a punch of his own, which his opponent barely blocked. The deadly dance continued as they tested each other's power. But amidst the storm of fists and feet, only Taeyong was taking any damage. After a few more lightning-fast exchanges, a chilling realization dawned on him. Of all the fighters he'd ever faced, Jiseon was on a completely different level. The atmosphere was freezing him to the bone, but he refused to be broken. The second that thought crossed his mind, a fist crashed into his face. Jiseon had exploited the single, fleeting moment Taeyong let his guard down. The assault didn't stop. Jiseon rained down a relentless flurry of strikes, giving his opponent zero room to breathe, let alone fight back. Jiseon's two friends roared with every clean hit he landed. A furious rage began to boil inside Taeyong, fueled by the young man's unchanging, ice-cold expression. He'd become nothing more than Jiseon's personal punching bag. Watching from his office, the teacher was furious. What was wrong with the boy he'd bet on the crowd, too, began to grumble, demanding to know why Lee Taeyong wasn't fighting back. Someone yelled to crank up the music, hoping to ignite the fighter's spirit. Soon, the entire gym was chanting Taeyong's name. The booming music and the roar of the crowd began to stir something within him. But for Jiseon, that singer's voice was strangely familiar. That brief moment of distraction cost him dearly. For the first time, Taeyong's punches found their mark. The crowd roared back to life. Someone asked what the song was. Another student answered that it was Ella Khan, a massively popular girl group. And then, Jiseon remembered. He remembered a girl telling him that once her group debuted, he'd officially be a pop star's boyfriend. In a memory from the past, she had asked him how he truly felt about her dream. She confessed the producers guaranteed her debut, as long as she followed every condition of her contract. She needed to know if he could accept that. Just as his friends called for him, he had looked at her with unwavering certainty. "No matter what you choose," he'd said, "I know it will be the right answer." Overwhelmed with joy, the girl had thanked him, whispering, "You're the only one I can truly trust. You're my sanctuary." The roar of the crowd ripped him from the memory and back into the brutal reality of the fight. Dazed and unfocused, he was now taking a merciless beating. His friends watched in horror, confused by his sudden collapse. Tae-eung, however, began to sneer. He believed Jiseon hadn't been strong at all, just overly cautious before. With that thought, Taeyoung's confidence surged. Victory felt certain as the crowd screamed his name in a euphoric frenzy. But it was the music blasting from the speakers that was truly destroying Jiseon's focus. He was being pushed back relentlessly, and his friends felt powerless to help. They quickly put the pieces together. The loud music was the source of his distraction. They raced toward the speaker to demand it be turned down, but the boy in charge just sneered back. "Mind your own business," Sunmin pleaded with him, explaining that Jiseon couldn't concentrate because of the song. But the boys just mocked him, saying the quiet kid was too weak to win anyway. In that instant, Goemon lunged forward, grabbed the entire speaker, and took off running. Despite their protests, he silenced the music. And in that quiet, a flood of broken memories surged forward. Her voice echoed in his mind, sharp as glass. "I'm done. I don't want to be a part of this anymore."
"From now on," she declared, her voice cold, "we're strangers." She was tired of it all. Then she turned her back and walked away, leaving him to scream her name into the void.
He called out her name, a desperate plea, until security guards dragged him away, his voice swallowed by the chaos. As Jisun drowned in the past, Taesung continued his brutal assault. Victory was just moments away.
Just a few more strikes were needed to end it all. And so, he rained down another barrage of blows on Jisun.
Jisun collapsed to his knees, his body broken, but his mind saw only the image of the girl who left him. As Taeong coiled for the final, match-ending blow, every spectator in the arena held their breath, certain it was over. But as the kick descended, something shifted. Jisun moved like a phantom, evading the attack with impossible speed. A switch had flipped in his mind, and his body exploded with a terrifying new energy. He unleashed a devastating punch that slammed into Taeyong's face, sending his opponent crashing to the canvas. The entire stadium fell into a stunned silence. But Jisun wasn't finished. He followed up with a vicious kick to his rival's head. Taeyong spat blood, his eyes wide with confusion. He couldn't comprehend what was happening. Kim Jin-woo, however, already knew. The fight was decided. Jisun's fans erupted in cheers while the rest of the arena watched in silent shock. Just seconds ago, Taeyong had been the undisputed master of the ring. Now, he was being stomped on like he was nothing. A terrifying aura poured from Jisun. His gaze was inhuman. Lying on the ground, his opponent could only beg for mercy. But the protagonist didn't hear him. He kicked his opponent's face again. And again. And again. A murmur of fear spread through the crowd. What was he doing? At this rate, he was going to kill the man. Jisun was lost in a blind rage. People turned to Kim Jin-woo, asking if he was just going to let Jisun commit murder in the ring. But instead of concern, Kim Jin-woo's face held a look of pure satisfaction. He was delighted by the boy's thirst for blood. He was already seeing the headlines, the ticket sales. Jisun was a gold mine. Now, he just needed to find the perfect opponent for the next thrilling spectacle. Finally, his friends couldn't watch any longer and leaped into the ring. They held him back, shouting that the fight was over, that he'd already won. Tyson's coach screamed in fury at his students' humiliating defeat. But for Kim Jin-woo, the only thing that mattered was profit. And he saw a future where Jisun would make him very, very rich. All Kim Jin-woo had to do was tame this beast. He would personally forge this young man into his loyal attack dog. Jisun finally snapped back to reality, finding his opponent a nearly unconscious wreck at his feet.
"Congratulations on your victory," Kim Jin-woo said with a smile. "I knew my judgment wasn't wrong. I want to see that same insane look in your next match." The prize money, he was told, would be sent through his agent.
As Kim Jin-woo walked away, the two boys rushed after him, trying to break the tension. They invited Jisun to celebrate his win, but Jisun simply slapped Goemon's hand away, a silent warning. "Don't touch me." He then turned and left, leaving his friends utterly bewildered. Further down the street, a familiar melody caught his ear. He looked up and froze. On a massive screen, Isaac Khan's face looked down on the city. An interviewer was asking if she truly understood how popular she had become. She smiled, saying she could feel her fans' love, thanking them for supporting her even through her weakest moments. Seungmin and Goemon, who had been tailing him, wondered why he'd stopped dead in his tracks to watch Isaac's interview. Then it clicked. He'd been acting strange ever since her music played. They jumped to the only conclusion they could. He must be one of her haters.
Seungmin was shocked to learn that Goemon was actually a huge fan of the singer.
He scoffed, saying it figured. But then he quietly admitted he was also a huge fan of her band. Sometime later, Jisun found his way to a deserted beach. His two friends, ever persistent, had followed him even there. The protagonist sat on a bench, just staring out at the dark ocean. "Shouldn't we go talk to him?" Min asked. But Goemon knew it wasn't a good idea. "But we're his friends," Min insisted. "We have to do something." Goemon hesitated. He knew someone who might be able to get through to him. He weighed the decision, wondering if he should make the call. Just as Aryam was drifting off to sleep, her phone buzzed. She woke with a start, seeing a message from Goemon. He wanted her to meet him at the beach, by the lighthouse. The girl quickly got dressed and moved like a shadow through her own home. She tiptoed past her father, who was passed out at the table from drinking again. He suddenly shouted curses into the air, and her heart leaped into her throat. But it was just a nightmare. He fell silent once more. She slipped out the door, her heart racing as she went to meet the boy. Back on the beach, Shungmin asked who he had called. Gomin looked towards the path and replied, "A girl?" Goin was in shock. He couldn't believe Shung was the one sending those messages. Sunungman quickly explained the situation. Aryam had no idea it was him. She had given that phone specifically to Jizusin, wanting a private way to communicate with him. But when Sunung got a hold of the phone, he couldn't stop himself. He started replying, pretending to be Jiz. A voice in his head told him to return it, but his heart wouldn't let him. Goen placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "Do you like her?" he asked gently. Sunung admitted he used to. But now, he knew his place. Goen gave him a firm push, telling him to return the phone before it was too late. With heavy steps, Sunung walked over to Jason on the bench and handed him the device. He apologized, confessing he'd impersonated him for a little while. He also admitted to sending one last message, begging Jizin not to push Aryam away. As he turned to leave, he added, "You two look really good together." Jizun checked the phone and his eyes widened. A new message from Aryam said she was almost there. For the first time, a wave of nervousness washed over him. Just then, Aryam appeared, running with a bright smile to meet the boy she adored. Hiding nearby, Gohaman was captivated by her beauty. While he remarked they were a perfect match, Sunung could only watch in despair, lamenting the loss of the girl of his dreams. Goman decided it was getting late. It was time for them to disappear. He invited Sunung for a night of video games at his place. The two friends departed, leaving the two lovebirds to their fate. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the crashing waves. Aryam finally typed a message, admitting his text had surprised her, her heart pounding as she waited for a response. Jizun's reply was simple, but it changed everything. "I was thinking about you." She tried to make conversation about the sound of the ocean, but his only reply was an emoji. When she asked if he came here often, he simply said it was his first time. Jisung then asked when she usually sleeps. Aryam replied, "Around 10. Admitting she was already asleep when his message woke her. He stood, offering to walk her home, but she grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "I don't want to go home yet," she pleaded. He didn't argue. He didn't even ask why. He simply accepted her silent request. He walked to a vending machine to grab them both a drink. She thanked him for the small kindness, and he finally asked why she was so reluctant. "To leave." The girl's voice dropped as she revealed a painful truth. "My home feels like a prison." She confessed how much his message meant to her that day, recalling that his last one had just been a simple good night. Even that previous message had caught her off guard, coming out of nowhere. Jason remembered it well. He chose not to mention that it was actually Shungmin who sent it. She explained that she'd been having a terrible day, but his message felt like a small voice of encouragement, telling her to just hang on a little longer. At that moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gathering her courage, she looked at him. Why aren't you saying anything?" The question sent him spiraling into the past, into a memory of the day his ex-girlfriend tried to abandon him. He remembered security guards holding him back, threatening to arrest him, and how she had suddenly run back, hugging him with all her strength. Through her tears, she confessed she'd practiced breaking up with him so many times, trying to be cold. But seeing him there, broken, she just couldn't do it. She swore she would never leave him, even if it cost her everything, and asked him what she was supposed to do. He had promised her then, no matter what happened, he would be by her side, begging her not to cry, swearing everything would be okay. And high above, on a nearby building, Go Bongan, the CEO of Bongan Entertainment, had watched them both. Snapping back to the present, he finally answered Aryam. He explained that sometimes, a person's words can pierce your very soul, paralyzing you completely. She found his answer deeply philosophical. "I don't know what you're going through," she said softly, "but I get the feeling your reason is much more complicated than mine." The boy then turned the question back on her. "What's your reason for staying quiet?" She replied with a calm sadness. "It's simple. My words are as dirty as my father's." She confessed that his cruel way of speaking had become a part of her, then admitted how stupid she sounded. Jizun just invited her to take a walk along the beach. As expected for a Saturday night, the shore was alive with people. But as they passed a nearby bar, the sound of an argument spilled out. A group of thugs was cornering a younger guy, criticizing him for daring to drink in their territory. But the boy just smirked back confidently. "I look older than I am," he shot back, "so I can drink wherever I want." His arrogance infuriated them. It was Kang Doyle, the very gang leader who wanted to recruit Jizun. He was just trying to have a peaceful drink, but trouble always seemed to follow. One of the thugs sneered.
Where's your little lackey what? Did you come all alone?
Doyle scoffed. I let the kids rest on holidays. Besides, it's easier for me this way. The man's patience snapped. Get out of here now, he warned, or you're going to regret it. With a mocking tone, Doyle wondered if the seniors at Desai High had scarred him so deeply. He called him pathetic for clinging to such old grudges. One of the thugs sent everything on the table crashing to the floor, his desire for violence clear in his eyes.
But Kang Doyle shot up, kicking the table towards the floor and declaring that he'd never once been afraid of taking a beating.
Everyone, both inside and on the street, knew what was coming. The one-on-one showdown had officially begun. Kang Doyle fought like he was toying with children. But in the middle of the chaos, his gaze locked onto a flash of bright blue hair. A wide grin spread across his face. Well, if it isn't my friend, he exclaimed. I'm so happy to see you here. He added that he was just on his way to see him. But it seemed fate had decided they should meet right here. He wrapped his arm around a confused Jaisen, calling their reunion a work of destiny. But the brawlers pouring out of the bar weren't impressed, demanding to know if Jaisen was part of his crew. Doyle scoffed, asking if they were blind to the connection between them. He proudly announced that he and Jisan were friends. The thugs, however, couldn't have cared less about their supposed friendship. Instantly, Jaisen moved, placing Aryam safely behind him. The group charged forward with pure hatred, screaming that they would kill both of the punks. While the gang leader handled one attacker, another lunged for Jisan. If you're friends, he snarled, you'll get beaten together with breathtaking ease. Our hero put the bully down. And just like that, the two fought as one, covering each other's weaknesses and tearing through the entire group in a matter of seconds. Watching the scene, Aryam realized something about Jisan. He seemed to stand atop a high, unreachable wall. And yet, she saw that he would sometimes descend from that wall to help someone in need. He may have seemed cold and distant, but that wasn't his true nature.
While everyone else fought for selfish desires, Jisan was on another level. He fought for something desperate, something that went far beyond his own will.
Suddenly, a glint of cold steel. One of the men had pulled a knife, creeping up behind the boy, unnoticed and ready to strike. The girl screamed a desperate warning, and his new fighting partner yelled for him to duck. Jason's instincts kicked in, allowing him to dodge the attack just in time. In the next instant, the gang leader appeared, delivering a flying kick straight to the opponent's face. He cursed the man for the cowardice of pulling a weapon against only two opponents. He sneered that only unskilled trash acts that way when cornered. Together, they finished off everyone who dared to face them. Doyle grinned, asking Jisan if they didn't make a beautiful duo, having wiped everyone out so perfectly. Jisan, however, was looking at Ari, his eyes fixed on the tears welling up in hers. Doyle asked if she was scared, dismissing the fight as nothing. In response, the main character's fist crashed into his face. Stunned, he demanded to know what the hell was going on. Without a word, Jason delivered another brutal punch to his stomach, dropping him. On the ground, the guy finally confessed he set it all up just to see Jason fight for real. As the main character threatened to end things right there, the boy raised his hands. He surrendered, insisting he didn't want to fight because they were on the same side now. He apologized for his methods, explaining it was all just a test that Jisan had passed with flying colors. Then, he asked Jisan to be his friend and join his crew. The boy, however, simply turned his back and walked away with Aryam. The other guy scrambled after them, commenting that the two seemed awfully close to be together at this hour of the night. He declared himself satisfied, feeling he'd played a role in their moment. And since he owed Jizanchin for his help, he offered them a place to rest instead of wandering the streets. The two were hesitant, but in the end, they accepted his offer. The guy led them to a comic book library. He woke the attendant from a deep sleep, announcing that his new customers had arrived. The attendant remarked that he'd never seen their faces before, and Doyle proudly replied that they were his new friends. The attendant noted that his usual type of friend had changed, since these two were actually good-looking. He told them to sit anywhere they liked, offering extra time on the house. While Doyle registered the two, the scene shifted to Aryam's home. There, the girl's father awoke from a heavy slumber. As he got up, he noticed the front door was wide open. He rushed to his daughter's room, only to find it empty. A desperate search began as he scoured the house, his panic growing when he couldn't find her anywhere.
Doyle revealed that this was his secret hideout, a personal sanctuary he used to relax whenever he wanted.
He was granting them special permission to enter, something he never allowed anyone else to do.
He asked if this gesture finally settled his debt with the boy. He urged them to relax and read a manhwa.
Announcing he was taking a nap, he said goodbye, laid down in a corner, and fell fast asleep. In the silence, John picked up his phone and asked Aryam if she was scared.
Aryam replied no, that she felt calm now. She then asked if he wanted to read a manhwa with her.
He agreed, and they settled on a story to begin their quiet afternoon.
After a few shy moments from the girl, they fell into a comfortable silence, lost in the book, until the library attendant approached. offering them drinks on the house.
The attendant seemed surprised, remarking that he never knew Doyle had friends like them. He confessed that Doyle's usual crowd was just a bunch of kids looking for a fight. As he handed them their drinks, they couldn't help but notice he was missing parts of 2 fingers. Seeing their startled looks, he just smiled faintly, saying he was used to it now, though the initial shock had been a nightmare. He explained that Doyle, however, still couldn't accept what had happened. The boy used to be just a normal kid, but that single incident sent him down a darker path.
He apologized for talking so much, asking them to please look after Doyle, because he was a good junior at heart.
The hours drifted by, and the girl eventually fell asleep, her head resting gently on his shoulder. She was lost to the world, until the sharp ring of her phone broke the peace. She woke with a start, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment as she realized she'd been leaning on Jizoon. Glancing at her phone, she saw 3 missed calls. She quickly explained to Jizoon that her father was calling and she had to leave immediately. Jizoon immediately offered to see her home. The 2 of them stepped out into the beautiful night. They reached her apartment building and rode the elevator in silence. At her door, she thanked him for the precious hours of freedom he'd given her. Her choice of words left Jizoon confused as she turned toward her apartment. But just as she typed in the code, the door was violently thrown open from the inside. Her father stood there, his face a mask of pure fury.
"What time is it?" he roared, his voice shaking with rage. "I called you over and over. Have you lost your mind?" Seeing her defiant stare only fueled his anger.
A sharp crack echoed in the hallway as his hand struck her face. "How dare you look at me like that when you're the one in the wrong?" As she crumbled to the floor, he loomed over her. "Have you no respect for your own father?" He grabbed her, trying to drag her inside. "How dare you leave without permission? Where were you until this hour?" His voice escalated with every word, demanding an answer. Seeing this horrific scene, a firestorm of rage ignited within Jizoon, and he moved forward. Spotting Jizoon, her father's eyes blazed with a new target. He was certain this boy was responsible for his daughter's defiance. "You," he snarled, "are not leaving here tonight." The girl desperately grabbed her father's clothes with both hands. "Let go of me," he bellowed. Tears streamed down her face as her eyes met Jizoon's. "Go away," she screamed, just as another vicious blow landed. "I'm going to kill him right now," the man raged. But she clung to her father, absorbing the hits while pleading for Jizoon to escape. "Just go," she shrieked one last time. Her desperate words finally broke through, and Jizoon turned and fled. The protagonist's mind raced. He remembered learning to run when he first moved to this city, and how he'd failed to face a monster just like this before. As Jizoon disappeared down the hall, her father's rage continued to fall upon her, demanding she release him. But Jizoon just kept running, taking the coward's way out. It was his nature, to run from a battle he knew he couldn't win. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to vanish into the silence and the dark. Far from her building now, he walked on, exhausted and utterly broken. He finally arrived home to find an old man kneeling in prayer before a Buddha statue. Jizoon knelt at the threshold. The old man glanced over. "You're late," he observed calmly. "This is the first time," he noted. "You must have much on your mind." The neighborhood Jizoon had chosen as his sanctuary was supposed to be the quietest place in the world. But even here, time had forged new bonds, and now he was faced with a choice. Before things became even more tangled, the question echoed in his soul: would he face it this time, or would he run away once more days passed? At school, the fights raged on. The fight club was a theater of pure brutality. Winners only stopped when their opponents begged for mercy, while bullies gloated over their broken victims. After one such pathetic display, Jin Woo stormed over to a boy who had surrendered. "The fight barely started and you already gave up," he demanded, his voice dripping with contempt. The boy trembled, saying he had no chance of winning. He saw no point in continuing a fight he was destined to lose. Kim Jin Woo's fist connected with his face. "If you step into this ring, you throw that mindset away," he declared.
"Weaklings like you don't deserve to be called fighters. Get out of my sight."
One of his cronies then approached. "Professor Kim is looking for you in the warehouse." In the warehouse, the professor told him they needed real fighters, not these fragile kids. Everyone, he said, was waiting for Jizoon's next match. Kim Jin Woo scowled. He was trying to find worthy opponents, but most had no guts. And the rest were just afraid of getting hurt. "Are you telling me you're incapable of finding anyone?" The professor's voice dripped with ice. Trembling, the boy insisted that wasn't it. It would just take some time. "How long?" the professor pressed. Hesitantly, the boy begged for a month. The older man scoffed, reminding him how he'd turned a wretch in fake sneakers into a man draped in luxury. And now he had gotten awfully confident. "But clients," he hissed, "do not wait for a month." He reminded him there were other places to get his dopamine fix, and that if he couldn't handle the hound dog operation, he was free to walk away. In a heartbeat, the boy was on his knees. He pleaded that he didn't want that, promising to give it his all. The professor's foot rested on the boy's head like a crown of shame. "You have 1 week to find his opponent," he declared. "Otherwise, you'll take responsibility and step into the ring yourself. Kim Jin-woo versus Jason. Now that would be interesting. It would be the perfect chance to unleash his inner fighter again. And the clients would absolutely love it." With a final warning of the 1-week deadline, the professor departed. The mere thought of fighting Jason himself sent rage boiling through his veins. Now, he had to find an opponent. Anyone would do. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, the three friends shared lunch. Goen complained about his donut bento, grumbling that eating bread every day was a bad habit. The other two ganged up on Jizoon, insisting he eat more, pointing out how thin he was. The rooftop had become their sanctuary, a comfortable routine. Just then, Jison's phone buzzed, and Min immediately piped up. "Is that Aryam?" A hint of worry in his voice. He asked if they were getting along okay, urging Jason to check his phone right away. The protagonist stood, moving away to read the message in private, while his friend tried to sneak a peek. Guan smacked him on the head, telling him to mind his own business. The message was from Aryam, asking to meet at the comic book store later. Hours later, the two of them met, standing together in the quiet sanctuary of the comic book store. A comfortable silence settled between them, a shared moment of peace. Finally, she gathered her courage. "It would be weird if I stayed silent now, especially after I screamed that day." "I've always hated my voice," she confessed. "I picked up this vulgar way of speaking from my father when I was young. I wished I could just hide it forever. But I don't regret it, not if it meant you wouldn't get hurt." Aryam told him how her mother had endured her father's cruelty until one day, she simply couldn't take it anymore, and left. After that, it was just her and her father alone in that house. She spoke less and less, until her voice disappeared completely. In the crushing silence, the few friends she had slowly drifted away. Just then, Doyle walked into the very same store. The clerk greeted him with a smile, letting him know that his friends were already there. Aryam continued, her voice soft, telling Jason she had always felt utterly alone, until she heard rumors of a new transfer student who never spoke. "That's why I wanted to know," she admitted. "If your story was like mine," Doyle appeared, his eyes wide with shock to see her speaking. "What happened? What made you—" A light blush touched her cheeks. She explained that she'd been in a situation where she had no choice but to be silent. Intrigued, he pressed, wanting to know exactly what kind of situation. A warm smile spread across his face. "Whatever the reason, I'm just glad we can talk more freely now." He sincerely congratulated her on finding her voice again. A moment of silence passed before Doyle asked about Jess, but he quickly changed the subject. "Hey, since we're all here, why don't we grab some dinner?" He even invited the clerk, saying there were no customers anyway. "Just pull down the blinds and let's go." But as they headed out for a peaceful dinner, Kim Jin-woo was somewhere else entirely, seething, obsessed with the idea of fighting Jez. His burly friend spoke up. "Giving you only 1 week? That's just too cruel, man." "Then find me someone," Kim snapped, his fury barely contained. "Don't you know a single bully who can fight?" "I don't know anyone," the friend admitted. "And it would be a huge disgrace to lose to the transfer kid. But there is one person that comes to mind. He's a high school dropout who became a real gangster. He warned, anyone who gets tangled up with him is asking for serious trouble." "Hold on," the other boy interjected. "Isn't bringing a real gangster into this taking things way too far?" Kim Jin-woo's eyes lit up with dangerous hope. "Who are you talking about?" Elsewhere in the city, a man was cornered by a loan shark over a debt that was 2 months past due. "Hiding without a word," the loan shark explained coldly, "is the same as trying to run away." The man, his face streaked with tears, swore he was trying to pay it back. The loan shark simply raised a pair of scissors, the cold steel glinting. "Are you really?" he asked, his voice chillingly calm. "We found you at a casino and brought you here." "I was there to win the money," the man cried desperately. "Just one jackpot is all I need to pay you back completely." "I even dreamed of my ancestors," he pleaded. "I can feel it. Something big is about to happen for me." The loan shark grabbed the debtor's hand, pressing the sharp point of the scissors against his finger, a cold promise of pain. Terror finally broke through the man's delusion as he begged for more time. The loan shark sneered. He couldn't even pay when he was working. And now he thinks he can settle his debt by gambling? He sneered. "Does anyone here look like a fool to you?" The enforcer gripped the man's trembling hand. "Now, this might sting a bit," he whispered. "But I'm a master. I promise a clean, perfect cut." The man begged for his life, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. In a sickening flash, his finger was gone. Then, the enforcer's voice turned chillingly serious. "What happens next," he warned, "is very important. You have exactly 1 hour to get the money. After that, you'll get this finger back to be sewn on." He screamed at the man to run, who fled in a storm of tears. The boss then asked his henchman, Happy to add another piece to your collection. The enforcer scoffed. This low-quality junk, hardly, he admitted. But it's been a while since I've felt a thrill like that. And this was the monster the burly friend had in mind for their fight. Jungai Sunbae, the very same one who severed the finger of a guitarist from their own school's band. His friend was in disbelief. Dude, that guy is on a whole other level of crazy. He explained that after the incident, Jungai did time in juvie and emerged as a full-fledged gangster. But Kim Jin-woo just grinned. So, is there any way to meet him? Even the friend who suggested it was shocked they would actually consider calling such a monster. The other boy was buzzing with hype for the coming clash. The gangster Sunbae versus the invincible transfer student. He declared that they couldn't afford to be picky anymore, whether he was a gangster or a killer. They had to make a move. As they plotted, the four friends headed out to grab a bite to eat. Hung grumbled that he hated going out, but Doyle shot back. You can't just rot away in that shop every day.
Doyle brought up a time when Hung used to perform on stage. The boy just muttered. That was a long time ago, Aram quickly added. It was just a phase.
You're in a band then, Doyle pressed. Since you're such an amazing guitarist, he quickly changed the subject. So, street food or Chinese? Just then, a car rolled past, its occupants spotting the four of them on the street. Inside were the loan shark and his thugs. The boss told his driver to pull over. I see some old friends I need to greet. He stepped out of the car, promising he'd be right back. Then his voice roared down the street, calling out Hung's name. As he closed in, a predatory smile spread across his face. I thought it might be you, and now I'm sure. The moment the man spoke of their past, terror washed over the boy. He stumbled backward into Doyle, who held him steady, trying to understand what was happening. The gangster chuckled darkly. What's wrong? You look like you've just seen a ghost. He stepped closer to the two boys. You seem close. That's good to see. Suddenly, his tone sharpened. So why are you frozen? I'm genuinely happy to see you. He reminded them how long it had been. Aren't you even going to greet me? Excuse me, Gunby, one of the friends interrupted. We were on our way to get something to eat, he added bluntly. And if this conversation continues, we're going to lose our appetite. Guy's expression went cold for a moment. Then, a slow smile returned as he pulled out his wallet. Let me pay for your meal, he offered. It's been a while. He stuffed the cash into the young man's pocket. Eat some meat, he commanded. Students like you never have money. Turning to Byung-gu, Guy's eyes narrowed. Our destinies seem to cross paths quite often, don't they? Reaching into his pocket, Guy said, I ran all this way just to give you this. He revealed the object. I got this today, and I thought you, of all people, really needed it. His friends could only watch the scene in horror. Byung-gu yanked his arm free, but Guy simply offered the twisted gift, instructing, Take this to the hospital and speak with the staff. He continued, Tell them to reattach your finger, so you can finally play the guitar again. His voice became agitated, almost manic. Go on, tell them it's your dream. The other friends were frozen, witnessing this nightmare unfold. The blue-haired young man couldn't watch. He turned his face to the side. The scene flashes back to that very same night. We see him from behind as a voice calls his name, Jaban. A man asks if he has grown used to the neighborhood, noting that he clearly hasn't. He advises him to be grateful for those who approach. As making friends won't be easy, he continues, explaining that the people who manage to cross the Great Wall of his silence will become the most precious individuals on his journey. That night, something in the young man's expression changed forever. Back in the present, he snaps. His hand shoots out, grabbing Guy's wrist. Guy spins around, stunned, coming face to face with him. The young man's gaze is unwavering. Coldly, Guy questions, And who is this damn fool who doesn't know how to read the room? Jian immediately lunges at Guy, but the gangster intercepts him, twisting his wrist. You've got some serious nerve, being so arrogant. Holding the young man's hand, Guy's eyes lingered on it. Well, he commented with a chilling smile. At least your fingers are beautiful. With ice in his voice, he warns him that if he interferes again, he might just lose his own fingers. He releases the young man's hand. Do you understand now? The boy stumbles back as Geet scoffs. Son of a bitch! Are you trying to start something? He sneers. You arrogant bastard! In the distance, a car horn blares, briefly drawing his attention to the street. Turning to Byung-gu, collapsed on the pavement, he mocks him. So, what's a life without dreams like, with a final cruel laugh? Geet faces the group and wishes them a pleasant meal. He walks away without a care in the world, disappearing down the street, on his knees. Byung-gu finally gives in to the pain. His friend rushes to his side, screaming. Byung-gu Hyung, lying on the cold ground. Byung-gu's first thought is for the others. Is everyone okay? The group quickly gathers around him. Pushing himself up, he forces a smile. That's all in the past, he assures them. I'm fine now. Byung-gu suggests they head back, saying they can always eat out another time. The boy with the lip piercing calls out his name. Byung-gu-hyung. Later, on a rooftop, Kang Doyle curses his own weakness. He had just frozen. In a cry of pure frustration, he screams, "I couldn't do anything." In the end, nothing had changed at all. The girl, her curiosity piqued, asks who that man even was. The young man's answer is blunt. That was Jung Gi-tae, the one who cut off Byung-gu-hyung's finger while he was playing guitar. Jibon adds with venom in his voice. He did it just to shatter his friend's dream. It all started because Byung-gu tried to stop that monster's reign of terror. The scene flashes back to the past, inside a music room. In that memory, Gait holds a knife to a terrified girl, ordering her to shut up or he'd kill her. Byung-gu grabs him from behind, yelling for Gait to stop. Gait struggles, trying to break free, ignoring every one of Byung-gu's desperate pleas. Then, Gait lashes out with the knife. Byung-gu throws his hands up instinctively to protect his face. Gait whirls around, his eyes blazing with fury. "Why did you have to interfere?" he screams. "Why do you always have to be so damn meddlesome?" He then warns him, "Don't think you're better than me just because you can play a guitar." Byung-gu stares back, his gaze unwavering. "You don't deserve to be here, Gait. This is a place where dreams are born. And you're someone who only destroys them." He continues, his voice filled with conviction. "Someone who tramples on others for their own selfish greed doesn't deserve to have a dream." Confused and enraged, Gait roars. "What kind of nonsense are you spouting?" Raising the knife high, he spits on the very idea of a dream. He turns to the students huddled at the door. "What are all of you looking at?" His shouts echo through the hall as he orders them all to leave. "I'll cut every single one of you into pieces," he threatens, consumed by rage. "Get out of my way." He shoves through the crowd of students and storms down the hallway. The others rush to Byung-gu's side, one of them yelling to get a teacher. Back in the present, Jibon explains that Gait never returned to school after that day. He had hoped that would be the end of it. But he was wrong. 2 weeks later, something far more horrifying happened. A blood-curdling scream tore through the band room. In the past, Byung-gu freezes in the hallway, his blood running cold at that sound. Jibon throws the door open, crying out, "Byung-gu-hyung!" With a pair of pliers in his hand, Gait greets him with a sick smile. "Still think you're so superior." As Byung-gu stumbles into the room, Gait orders him forward. "Come see for yourself," he snarls. "The reality of a dream." Then, Gait begins to rant about a life without any dreams. From the present, Jibon's narration reveals that he froze solid, forced to witness that nightmare all over again, sitting on top of the other boy. Gait turns to Doyle. "Oh, when did you get here?" Getting to his feet, he stretches. I feel so much better now." He issues a chilling warning to Jibon. "If you tell anyone what you saw, you'll end up just like him." Jide slides his hand across the other boy's face in a grotesque caress. "See you around," he says, before leaving Jibon utterly paralyzed in the room. Returning to the present, Jibon explains that Jung Gi-tae dropped out of school right after that incident. He continues, his voice laced with bitterness. "He was sent to a reformatory and came out a full-fledged gangster. Now he's a loan shark for some criminal organization." Jibon's voice cracks with emotion. "The reason I am who I am is because of Jung Gi-tae." His conviction burns brightly. "I swore to myself that day. A person who destroys another's dream cannot be allowed to walk free." Falling to his knees, he cries out, "I just wanted to get stronger, strong enough to make him feel the same pain Byung-gu went through. But I froze. All over again." His voice drops to a whisper, filled with self-loathing. "I really thought I'd gotten stronger." But in the end, nothing's changed. The girl connects the dots. "So that's why you wanted Jibon's help." Jibon confirms it. "The guy is a gangster now. That's why I thought I needed to gather more strength." He declares his true goal. "I'm going to take him down by force and make that bastard finally pay for everything he's done." With unwavering resolve, Jibon declares, "This is why I needed you, Jion." For a moment, she stands frozen, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Later, as they walk the city streets, she breaks the silence. "I understand the situation," she says, her voice laced with worry. "But you're picking a fight with a real gangster." Her eyes search his, questioning. Is this revenge really worth the danger? But something Doyle said had ignited a core belief within him. The idea that anyone who shatters another person's dream should never be allowed to walk free. His gaze fixed forward. Jibon's purpose crystallizes. "This isn't personal revenge," he states coldly. "This is justice." Meanwhile, in a classroom buzzing with gossip, a friend reminds Yenna that her birthday is just around the corner, as another classmate asks if she had forgotten. The questions begin to fly. "Are you throwing a party? Where will it be?" And then, the one that truly matters. "Will you invite Jion, too?" Yenna's mind races. Would he feel awkward? but her friend is quick to reassure her. There's no way he would ignore you on your birthday.
Suddenly, her friend points towards the window, revealing Jibon is right there. Outside, Jibon walks through the courtyard with Aram. Whispers erupt. Isn't that Han Aram from the next class? The girl who never talks. 2 other boys approach them, offering a friendly, good morning. A sting of irritation hits Yenna. Why is Aram suddenly the center of attention? She turns away, forcing herself to believe she doesn't care.
Later, a group of bullies tries to send Jibon on a lunch run, claiming the school bread isn't good enough. Just then, Aram appears in the doorway, and one of them snaps. What do you want? Holding a bag, she boldly declares. I came to have lunch with you. Jibon gives her an intense look. One of the boys stammers. Of course you can. Then it hits him. Wait, did you just speak? He asks in utter shock. Soon, the boys are admiring the lunchbox she brought, asking if she made it all herself. Aram offers them some food, and they eagerly accept.
Watching from a distance, Yenna observes the entire scene, a storm brewing in her heart.
Elsewhere, in the city's underbelly, Guy is on the phone, his voice cold as steel. He confirms a deadline and orders a money transfer. The second a woman mentions her husband returning, he hangs up. Approaching a nondescript door, he continues on his way. But something catches his eye, a business card, which he plucks from the doorframe. He steps inside, announcing his return to his boss, all while 3 young men watch him from across the room. They mutter among themselves, noting his powerful presence and the card in his hand. One of them whispers, Is it really a good idea to recruit a gangster? His friend scoffs, his voice dripping with contempt. What's there to be afraid of? They're the cancer of society. He spits the word. Trash.
A dangerously calm voice cuts through the air. What did you just say? The words echo back. Cancer of society? Trash. The legendary Kim Jin-woo himself turns at the comment. The room's boss, completely bewildered, demands to know who these punks are. One of his underlings quickly clarifies. Boss, they're talking about gangsters. Gangsters? The boss questions, an eyebrow raised. Are you boys referring to us defensively? One of the youths puffs out his chest, declaring, We're just small business owners who pay our taxes. The boss leans in, a smirk playing on his lips. And what exactly about us makes you think we're gangsters? The young man's arrogance vanishes, and he freezes, unable to answer. But in his mind, he's screaming that it's completely obvious. The boss closes the distance. Why the silence? Did you come here looking for a loan? The young man recoils, frantically denying it. Just then, Guy steps forward, holding up the business card. I believe this belongs to you. The young man confirms it, explaining they were there to deliver that exact card. Looking at it, Guy inquires, Hound dog? What is that? Anyway, the boss interrupts, stating he's heard that name before. Another man in the room chimes in, suggesting it's Duck's business. The boss confirms it's Duck's illegal gambling operation, a place where people bet on fights, which the young man nervously affirms. And then it all clicks into place. They recruit skilled fighters to make them a fortune. Kim wondered if the people running Hound Dog were, in fact, gangsters themselves.
The sickening realization dawned on him he was tangled up in a business run by thugs. Elsewhere, Doyle finds Gibbon and asks him a simple question. Do you know how to ride a motorcycle?
Why, Jibon wants to know. Doyle explains that he owns one and needs him to be his driver. Aram asks why Gibbon has to be the one to drive. Doyle calmly explains he twisted his ankle earlier during gym class.
Tossing a helmet to Jibon, he asks for that ride. Where are you 2 going? Aram quickly interjects. Doyle replies that it's not far and he'll give directions. Turning to her with a grin, he says, Don't worry, I'll bring your boyfriend back soon. No, Aram quickly denies, flustered. We're just friends. Jibon remains silent, holding the helmet. He tells a friend that Doyle just needed some fresh air. Then, the 2 of them head towards the motorcycle. Doyle asks if he can handle a bike like this. In response, Jibon effortlessly pops a wheelie, and Doyle just smirks. As they tear through the city streets, Doyle comments, You've already caused a lot of trouble, haven't you? He urgently warns Jibon about a sharp turn ahead and tells him to slow down. But with absolute precision, Jibon takes the turn perfectly. Doyle stares in amazement. Did you just use a countersteer? Jian kept his eyes on the road. Who on earth was this Gibbon? Once they arrived, Doyle told Jian to pull over. Jian's eyes locked onto the building's sign. Doyle crouched, his fingers closing around a piece of jagged brick. He lifted it to his ear, as if making a call. With grim sincerity, Doyle confessed, If you hadn't driven me, Jian, I would have lost my nerve and turned back, just like last time. He declared with newfound resolve, This is how I stop running away. In that instant, Jian understood. This wasn't just an act. It was a declaration of war. Doyle's voice was low and filled with venom. That bastard made Bayangu wet himself, a band leader, humiliated in the middle of the street. He turned to Jian. Am I supposed to just let that slip? He then swore, This is the least I can do. His tense gaze remained fixed on Jian, awaiting a reaction. Meanwhile, back at the office, the boss scoffed. This isn't a playground for brats like you. Kim explained he'd come after hearing the rumors, recognizing him as his senior, Jong Gai, the legend who dropped out of school to become a gangster. The young man continued, explaining they were preparing for the main event. And we came for you, believing you were the right person? Guy sneered. Are you trying to recruit me for some kid's squabble? But the young man insisted. This opponent is on another level. He should not be underestimated. At that, a flicker of interest ignited in Guy's eyes. The idea of a worthy adversary was tempting. The young man presented his phone. He's a transfer student, a real monster to deal with. The words transfer student seized Guy's undivided attention. The name on the screen was Jian. The video showed him landing a devastating blow on an opponent, a brutal highlight reel from a past battle. The clip ended on a close-up of Jian's face. As Guy watched, a flicker of recognition crossed his features. He remembered him now, the boy who was with Doyle, the one with the unusually beautiful fingers. In the present, Guy's boss warned him. It's just a student brawl. Stay out of it. Respecting his senior, Guy simply agreed. Suddenly, a brick shattered the window. Whistling past his face, a shard of glass sliced his cheek, drawing blood. He whipped around, fury blazing in his eyes. Who the hell was that, rushing to the window? The boss roared. Are you trying to die? Through the broken frame, they saw a single motorcycle speeding off into the darkness. Guy's eyes followed its path until it disappeared. The boss asked if he was all right, but Guy offered no reply. On the bike, Jian knew it was a reckless provocation, but he could feel the sheer amount of courage that single act had taken. Doyle's hand, trembling, gripped his shoulder with crushing force. Jian recognized that fear. It was the weight of a great, insurmountable mountain pressing down on them. And as they sped down the darkened road, he knew that feeling all too well. After Guy agreed to join Hound Dog, the students thanked him, promising their absolute commitment. But Guy immediately imposed his conditions. He would decide the time and place, and they were to bring only their single best fighter. One of the students mentioned the school gym, but Guy cut him off with a glare. What do you take me for, to suggest we fight on school grounds? The young man quickly bowed in agreement. He understood now. The terms were absolute, and this man, Guy, was on a completely different level of strict. Then, Guy asked, do you know a kid named Kang Doyle? The student's eyes lit up with recognition. He's a freshman punk from Dason Industrial High. Guy mused to himself. Had that little brat really grown so much? The student added that Doyle was expanding his territory, then asked, why the sudden interest, senior Guy? A determined look hardened Guy's face as he gave his order. Find that punk's whereabouts, he declared. That boy has a debt to pay. In another part of the city, Jian swept the temple courtyard. He paused his sweeping for a moment to greet his master. The master returned the greeting and welcomed the visitors. Have you come for prayers? To which Sangmin confirmed, yes, master. My mother reminded me it was the first of the month, and it's been a while. She insisted I come pray. The master smiled. An excellent initiative. The master nodded, but Sangman was staring at Jian in surprise. Are you living here? As they sat, Sangman remarked, I thought you lived in the dorms. I used to visit this temple when I was a child. Later, on the phone, Sangman informed a friend. Jian is living at Saboam Temple. He invited the person over, who confirmed they were on their way, asking him to buy some tasty food. Just then, a figure rushed up the temple steps, calling Jian's name. Sangmin offered a greeting as Jibin turned to see who had just arrived. And standing behind the man was Aryam. The young man quickly explained to Jibon, I sent Aryam a message, inviting her to come along. Aryam gave a small nod when Sangmin asked if she was okay. Elsewhere in the city, a group of guys were gathered around a busted scooter. One of them diagnosed the problem. It's gotta be the spark plug. But another, lounging in a chair, had a different idea. You sure it isn't the coil? One of the men finally suggested. Let's just take this thing to a mechanic. But another shot back, complaining. Have you any idea what that'll cost? The young man just turned his head, staring off into the distance. A new voice cut in. It was Guy, slipping on a pair of brass knuckles. With this many of you here, you can see why I need this. To not waste my time. One of the men stood up to the sudden provocation. What the hell are you talking about? Who are you? I'm here to collect a debt, Guy stated plainly. But the other insisted. Tell us who you are before you try to start something. Without another word, Guy's fist slammed into the man's face. He crumpled to the ground with a groan. You psycho, another one shouted. Who are you, instead of an answer? Guy delivered a crushing blow to his face as well. That man collapsed in an instant, leaving only one left standing. His eyes widened at the brass knuckles. That thing is devastating. Guy turned his cold gaze to the last survivor. This one would make a perfect punching bag for practice. The young man, now called a piece of trash by Guy, shot back, threatening to end him. A smirk played on Guy's lips. These bastards still don't get it. Shut your mouth, the man screamed, charging forward. A punk like you just needs one good hit. He threw a wild punch, but Guy dodged it with ease. Seizing the massive opening, Guy smashed his fist into his opponent's face, and immediately followed up with another. The man staggered back, his face a bloody mess. With a chilling smile, Guy beckoned to him. Come on, try to hit me. Realizing how outmatched he was, the man accepted the taunt. Guy settled into a firm stance. Bring it.
I'll show you just how far a guy who talks big can go, the man declared, bracing himself for the attack.
But in that moment, Doyle finally moved, grabbing a steel pipe from the ground. Back in the fight, the man in the green tracksuit was already down for the count. Looking down at his state, Guy commented coolly, Not much you can do. When you're slow and only thinking about defense. Doyle raised the pipe high above his head, bringing it down with all his strength, screaming in pure rage, Die! But Guy blocked the devastating blow, crossing his arms like a shield. Staring the young man down, Guy asked Kang Doyle, Are you ready? Doyle was silent, his eyes locked with Guy's. Holding the pipe, Guy asked again, Kang Doyle, are you ready? Then he roared Doyle's name, a challenge to his very soul. With every ounce of his being, Kang Doyle stared back at his aggressor. You're still the same, Guy sneered. The same trembling coward you've always been. But Doyle simply raised the pipe again and said, Shut up. You will never beat me, not even in death, Guy vowed, his voice laced with venom. You just stood by and watched while they cut off Byung-gu's finger. Doyle cursed, the memory twisting inside him. Unfazed, Guy gave a simple command. Kneel. And just like that, Kang Doyle obeyed.
That's where you belong, Guy stated. Then he ordered Doyle to look up. How dare you? Raise a pipe to me.
In the same instant, he struck Doyle across the head, a vicious punishment for daring to fight back. He forced the young man's head up again and smashed him in the face, spitting out the word, Worm!
Kang Doyle collapsed to the pavement. Jung Guy then demanded, Beg for my mercy. And with his head bowed, Kang Doyle surrendered.
Inside a serene temple, worshippers offered their prayers. Han Aryam moved gracefully, serving a meal to the group. One of the men remarked kindly, I don't believe I've seen you here before. To which she replied, This is our first time visiting. Please come back more often. The man invited them. While they were washing dishes, Sangmin commented to Jabon, Aryam really seems to like the atmosphere here. One of the other boys, straining under the weight of a heavy vase, grumbled, Why am I the only one doing all the hard labor? A monk praised their hard work, but Sangmin replied, It's the least we can do to earn our meal. The monk smiled, saying he hoped to invite them more often. Please, rest for a while before you go. As night began to fall, one of them sighed. The day went by so fast, that rest felt good. Two of the boys then asked Jabon, Do you think we can come back to the temple some? One of them confessed quietly. This place, it gives me a sense of peace. Sangmin couldn't help but joke. You look like a monk in training already. The comment made Sangmin pause and wonder aloud. Maybe I should consider becoming one. Suddenly, a shout pierced the quiet evening. Fire! The cry sent a wave of confusion through everyone. Jibin and his friend bolted outside, trying to see what was happening. A monk was already battling the flames. Someone guessed the cause. It must have been a cigarette butt.
A man sighed at the carelessness of people, but the monk offered some comfort. At least we found the fire in time.
He tried to calm them down, but Sunung's men admitted. That was pure terror. One of the youths shuddered. I think I just lost 10 years of my life. And Sunung's men agreed. This could have been a total disaster. But in that moment, something strange caught Jion's eye. A business card from the hound dog was wedged into the door. One of the guys swore it wasn't there before. Just then, a horrifying vision flooded Jion's mind, Kang Doyle, beaten and bloodied, begging him to stay away. Doyle's voice pleaded frantically, insisting that Jion must not come for him. Meanwhile, inside a sleek car, a man in glasses asked his subordinate if the match was fully organized. From the street, the young man confirmed both sides were prepped, laying out the premise a fearsome gangster versus a new transfer student. From the back seat, the man in the car checked. The gangster? His name is Jong Gai, correct? The woman beside him, asking for a lighter, added that the gangster hailed from the notorious D's Industrial Technical School. As the car pulled away, the man wanted to know which gang he belonged to. The reply came back. He's affiliated with the Jokdo Association. Murmuring to himself, the man repeated the name with a knowing tone. The Jokdo Association. But the young man on the street interrupted, revealing he knew the man was also under their control. He added that Guy was bursting with enthusiasm for the match. The man in glasses mused. So the Johto Association is sending their own players to hype the game. Soon after, he admitted to himself there was no way to refuse. The opportunity was far too incredible to pass up. The young man was ordered to announce the match far and wide, promoting it as much as possible. But he boldly asked, "Boss, whose side are you on, you idiot?" The man stated coldly that his support, obviously, was with the Johto Association. The scene then shifts to a quiet forest canopy, along a dirt path. Jian is running, pushing himself to his limits. He moves through the vegetation with a steady, relentless pace. Reaching a clearing, he stretches with a powerful high kick, stealing his resolve. He vowed that he would fight with every ounce of his being, no matter what.
He promised himself he would become strong enough that no one could ever threaten him again. But his friends suddenly appeared, explaining that the monk had told them he would be there.
One of them commented that the grueling climb was worth it, while another immediately begged for chocolate.
Panting heavily from the trek, Han Ariam struggled to catch her breath.
Sunman told Jian how important this day was, while another friend admitted he came because he was worried. They promised to cheer with all their might, regardless of the opponent. Irem confirmed that she would be cheering for him with everything she had, too. United, his friend's support gave him strength, and Jian's resolve hardened. But upon arriving at the fight location, one of them pointed ahead, commenting on the chilling atmosphere. Astonished by the grim setting, Sunman realized the fight was going to take place in a place like this. The very air felt heavy, making them tremble without even knowing why. Another friend questioned if Jian was okay. Noting his friend showed no hesitation at all, Sunman wondered if their cheering had even reached him. Standing before the imposing warehouse, several stone-faced men waited in silence. The fight organizer approached Jian with a sickeningly cordial smile, stating it was an honor to see him arrive on time. One of Jian's friends couldn't hold back, accusing the man of threatening Jian by setting the fire. Feigning ignorance, the man simply advised Jian to ignore the details and focus on the fight, leaving his friends seething with indignation. The atmosphere of the arena crackled with savage energy. The organizer explained that expectations were sky-high and reinforced that Jian must not underestimate his opponent, demanding he fight with everything he had. Then, a thunderous voice shouted for the gate to be opened. As the massive doors groaned apart, Jian and his friends stared into the abyss. Inside the warehouse, a roaring crowd cheered for blood. Observing the frenzied audience, they felt the crushing weight of the atmosphere.
From the other side of the arena, a voice called out Jian's name. With his back turned, Zhang Gai himself announced that he had been waiting.
Turning slowly, the gangster smirked. "You should know who I am, Jian, especially because of Doyle." Facing his opponent, Jian steadied his stance. Ariam gasped, shocked to see him there, and Sunman immediately asked if she knew that person.
The horrifying truth was about to be revealed. One of the friends whispered that Zhang Gai was a real gangster, shocking the group. With supreme confidence, Gai declared it was time to finish what they had started.
"But first," he announced, "a special guest who will make you very happy to see." When a spotlight flared to life, both Jian and Ariam stared at the scene, holding their breath. Chained in the center of the ring was Kang Doyle, who weakly stated that Jian should not have come. He didn't want to be seen this way. He insisted again that Jian leave, covering her mouth. Ariam let out a desperate cry for Doyle, completely confused. His friends could only ask what was happening and why he was chained up like an animal. With a chilling tone, Zhang Gai demanded if Jabon understood why Doyle was in this state. But before the brutal scene, Jabon was utterly speechless, vowing to deliver vengeance for all the suffering. Zhang Gai sneered. Asking if Jibon truly intended to protect that man, he revealed the key to the chains was in his own pocket, promising to hand it over if Jibon could defeat him. But there was a condition if he won. A dark proposition that made Jabon's friends react in pure terror.
Calmly, Guy declared that money held no interest for him. Instead, he announced that if he won, he would take 2 of Jabon's fingers, daring him to accept the challenge.
His friends were horrified, calling the condition completely insane. They desperately tried to stop the confrontation, insisting it was unacceptable and that their opponent was a clear psychopath. Han Ariam's warning was heavy with dread, confirming that the man was truly cruel. A flashback surged forward the day Doyle's hands trembled, clinging to a motorcycle. The memory showed Byung-gu so terrified of Guy, he had wet his pants, back in the present. The gangster inquired with a low growl if Jabon was afraid. Jian realized the sheer force of his opponent's will. He could make anyone tremble with his presence alone. But as he cast off his jacket, he declared he could no longer hold back, while his friends asked in disbelief if he would actually fight.
A twisted smile of excitement spread across Zhang Gitai's face, savoring the boy's defiance as Jian stepped into the center of the ring, preparing for combat.
The crowd around him erupted into a chaotic frenzy, while his friends could only watch on, their faces etched with deep concern.
In the heart of the arena, the 2 contenders faced each other, surrounded by a roaring sea of spectators.
The announcer's voice boomed from a megaphone, declaring the fight would begin shortly and urging everyone to place their bets. He introduced the first competitor, hailing Jong-gai as the powerhouse of the underworld. Then, he announced Gione, the transfer student who had taken down the champion. He ignited the arena, roaring to the audience about who would emerge victorious. A countdown began. In the control room, a man with glasses monitored every single detail on the screens. Watching the more than 2,000 live spectators, he commented on the event's grand scale, declaring that the stage was set. He urged them both to fight until blood was spilled. The match began, and Jung-gai exploded forward without a moment's hesitation. He launched a vicious knee strike at Jun's head, beginning the assault. However, the boy blocked the follow-up and countered with a powerful kick. He then backed away, creating distance. The crowd continued its deafening cheers.
Preparing a new attack, Jung-gai adjusted his stance, defending against a flurry of punches as Jion watched every single blow with intense focus. While his speed and strength were far above average, he had never formally learned boxing or any martial arts.
As a pure street fighter, Jibon's impressive physique made him a truly dangerous opponent. "Are you scared?" Jong-gai roared in fury. Jibon surged forward without hesitation, slamming a direct punch into his opponent's ribs. He felt the solid impact. The blow was clean and powerful. In an instant, Gatai retaliated, striking Jion squarely in the face. "That only tickled," he commented with a sneer, challenging him to bring more. Stunned by his enemy's reaction speed, Jibon's instincts screamed at him to find an opening. Even without technique, his opponent overcame every challenge with sheer physical power, and Jibon was hit again and again, responding with grit. The boy landed another kick to Gatai's face. "Was that a massage?" Gatai asked with a mocking laugh. "Do you really think you can defeat me like that?" he questioned. "I'll show you reality," Gai shouted, launching himself into another attack. As he was hit again, Jion's rage didn't fade. It blazed even hotter. The crowd roared Jong-gai's name like a battle cry.
"Who has the upper hand?" one of Jun's friends asked. "His guard is starting to fail," the other commented grimly.
He continued his analysis, stating the opponent's physique was overwhelmingly superior, and it would be catastrophic if Jibon took a serious hit. One of them explained that Jaeon's only strategy was to wear the opponent down by accumulating damage over time. As for Gai, his plan was simple: end it with a single, overwhelming blow, fueled by his monstrous force. Observing the brutal contest, Ariam whispered, "If Jibon gets hit, everything will be lost." But then, Ariam heard Doyle's desperate voice echoing from where he was chained, calling out to her. She rushed toward him, moving away from the fight's center. "You need to stop him," Doyle pleaded. "Why did you bring Jibon here?" "Jibon had no choice," Bitchy explained. "They threatened to burn down the temple where he lives." "Damn everything," he cursed. "Free me. I need the key," he demanded again. "The key is with Jong-gai," she reminded him, trying to make him understand the impossible situation. "I'll find a way to get it," Doyle asserted. "That man is like a snake," he warned. "You never know what he'll do." Agreeing with him, Ariam struggled to keep her composure from shattering completely. The brutal exchange of blows raged on, forcing her gaze back to the ring. Han Ariam watched every single move with fierce intensity. Jion landed a thunderous blow. "Keep it up!" one of his friends roared amidst the chaos. Jion pressed his attack, unleashing a relentless barrage on Jong-gai.
"This is his chance attack." Shouts erupted from the crowd, fueling the fire. "Show him what you've got. Hit him harder."
His friends' voices urged him onward as he closed the distance with Jong-gai.
"But I was waiting for this exact moment," the fighter revealed with a smirk. "Your pretty techniques are useless on the streets."
With a savage roar, he unleashed a vicious punch. In that instant, Ji realized he had walked right into a trap. In the face of pure power, nothing else matters. The gangster's fist crashed into him, snapping Jion's head back with brutal force. "Ji Jibon," his friends screamed, unable to believe their eyes. "This is the wall of reality," Jong-gai proclaimed, continuing his ruthless assault. "I've clawed my way up from the gutter," he sneered. "What makes a sheltered punk like you think you can possibly defeat me?" He then commanded the boy, "Know your place?" A chilling "goodbye" echoed as Jibon's vision started to fade. In that moment, a memory surfaced, a gentle hand cupping his face. "You can do it," the voice of a girl, pleading with him. "Please, see this through." The words "I love you" struck him like lightning, and his heart began to hammer in his chest. A new energy surged through him as Jibon forced himself back to his feet. "Snap out of it," Hanarim shouted. But the boy's focus was entirely locked on his opponent. Instinctively, he blocked Jong-gai's next punch with both arms. "You stubborn cockroach," the aggressor exclaimed, astonished that Jibon had weathered the blow. Even while injured, Jibon met his rival's glare and answered with a sharp counterattack to the face. The impact sent Gai stumbling backward. "This just turned into a real fight," the boy's friends commented. "No one is playing around anymore." As for Jong-gai, It's been a long time since I've felt a thrill like this. My blood is pumping, he stated. You're tougher than I imagined, the fighter admitted. But you're still nothing more than prey. With that, he lunged forward. Jibon met the charge with a powerful kick, while Jonggai's chilling philosophy echoed. For gangsters, losing is not an option, he declared. The moment we lose, we die, Guy roared. I will never lose to you, as he drove another fist into Jibon's face. He's like a zombie, one of Jibon's friends yelled out as the intensity of the fight reached a fever pitch. The two warriors continued to trade devastating blows. But Jibon's friends noticed a change. He wasn't blocking anymore. He was dodging every attack. Jibon gracefully evaded another punch, and the aggressor cursed him, consumed by frustration. But then one of his friends pointed toward Jibon, completely motionless. The young man had lowered his guard, stunning everyone into silence. Calling him a loser, Guy charged in to finish him, but Jian landed a perfect, direct punch to the aggressor's chin. Kang Doyle wondered if Jian had already deciphered his opponent's pattern. He concluded Guy's movements were reckless, aimed only for a one-punch knockout. Jian had anticipated the attacks and now understood Guy's weakness. After slipping past another blow, he unleashed a full-force kick against his opponent. The scene then shifted, showing the young man clutching a piece of wood. Jongai cursed and challenged him, pointing the makeshift weapon at Jian. In response, the young man simply stared back, his gaze fixed and unwavering. Jongai roared that the real fight was starting now, declaring that the rules of the game no longer mattered. His threat altered the entire atmosphere of the arena. Ji's friends immediately labeled him a coward, accusing him of cheating. Even the match announcer had to emphasize that using a weapon was a clear violation. However, Guy ordered the losers to shut their mouths and asked if this looked like some kind of game to them. He then challenged anyone in the audience who dared to face him. Turning back to Jian, he urged him to finish the contest. This isn't a game. This is a fight between us, Ji agreed. This is a real fight, Guy then bellowed, charging at the young man. He promised to utterly crush him. The aggressor attacked with the wooden plank, daring Jibon to face him. His friends watched the scene, commenting on the dirty tactic. Don't get involved with gangsters, you brat, he yelled at Jian. But the young man blocked the attack with a kick and immediately followed up with another to his opponent's head. Jongai crumpled to the ground. Defeated by Jian, spectators murmured that he seemed finished and called him pathetic for a gangster. At that moment, Kang Doyle's keychain slipped and fell to the ground. Han Aram noticed the object. It's not over yet, Guy snarled. Staggering to his feet, I won't stop until one of us is annihilated, he roared. Jian ran towards his rival and delivered another direct blow. The young man hit him again, sending him back to the ground. I can't lose to a failure like you, Guy protested from his knees. You have no right to feel wronged, Jian replied coldly. You're nothing but a bully who preys on the weak.
You must have felt superior destroying the dreams of others, but that doesn't make you strong. Live in mediocrity for the rest of your life.
He delivered his final judgment on his rival. But suddenly, Jongai pulled out a hidden knife. The coward lunged forward, aiming to stab Jian in the back. Gasps of shock erupted from the crowd. Look behind you, one of Jian's friends roared. A desperate warning. You should never turn your back on a gangster. Guy sneered, the cold steel of his knife glinting as he closed in. He slammed Jian to the unforgiving floor, hovering over him like a predator. I'm going to erase you from existence, Jungatai vowed. Every time you look in the mirror, the thug threatened, raising his blade, you'll regret the day you ever crossed me.
I am the absolute victor, he declared, savoring his triumph. But in that instant, a flash of fire slammed into his face.
Kang Doyle had arrived. He struck with a burning plank of wood, pinning the gangster down with his foot on Gatai's back. Doyle held him fast. He turned his attention to Jian. You all right? Jian could only give a silent nod.
Aram couldn't believe it. When did Doyle get free? Her friend whispered that she was the one who'd untied him. Kang Doyle's gaze met Jian's. Mind if I finish this?
He sat squarely on Guy's back and began to snap his fingers, one by one. Wait, Jian suddenly commanded. Don't continue. Jungatai cried out from the dirt. Why? Doyle asked, his voice chillingly calm. Stop it, you little punk, Guy begged. You were about to do far worse, Doyle reminded him coldly. But I'm different, Guy insisted. Doyle tilted his head. How so?
I'm on a completely different level than you, he spat, looking away. Just one more to go, Kang Doyle said softly, before another sickening crack echoed through the air.
As Kang Doyle's hand hovered over the last finger, John Guy screamed for him to wait. You bastard, Guy shrieked. I'm a real gangster. He then made a final, desperate threat. My boss will kill you if he finds out about this.
Kang Doyle looked utterly unimpressed. And why would I tell him anything? Are you a child, running to your mommy?
Just then, the match organizer and his men stormed in. Stop this at once, he commanded. But an arm shot out, blocking his path. It was Jiyeon, standing firm, while Doyle continued to loom over the pathetic guy. The organizer glared at Jiyeon. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Can you handle the fallout from this? Kang Doyle glanced back over his shoulder. Jiyeon turned to meet his gaze. Doyle simply smirked. Please stop, I'm a veteran, Junggetai pleaded desperately. Doyle's voice dripped with contempt. Now you're just pathetic. To think I was ever worried about you. It's embarrassing. And with that, he snapped Jungai's last finger. A girl in the crowd gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The audience watched, completely stunned by the brutality. This entire match is invalid, the organizer declared loudly. This has devolved into nothing but a chaotic brawl. But the crowd roared back in protest. The gangster was the one who cheated first. Even a man who bet against Jiyeon had to admit it. The kid won, fair and square. Soon, the entire warehouse echoed with cheers for Jiyeon's victory. The organizer shot him a death glare, but Jiyeon's expression remained like stone. Jiyeon's friends yelled out, "Everyone here saw him lose." The crowd's chanting only grew louder, repeating Jiyeon's name. Standing beside Doyle, Jiyeon glanced back one last time. Elsewhere, in a private office, the man in glasses stared in disbelief. Things had escalated far beyond his expectations. He couldn't process it. Jiyeon had defeated a member of the Jokdo Association. And it happened during the stream's peak viewership. An incident like this would make the entire organization a joke. He groaned, thinking of the catastrophic financial losses to come. He placed all the blame squarely on Jeon's shoulders. Now, he had to figure out how to clean up this mess, cursing the entire situation. Meanwhile, a sleek black car pulled up near the warehouse. Inside, the driver announced their arrival. "We're here, sir?" But the superior simply ordered, "Wait." Just then, the driver spotted a familiar figure stumbling out of the warehouse. "Sir, Jong Gai is leaving the building." The man in the back seat gave a single, cold command. "Turn off the engine." Jong Gatai limped toward the car, crying out for his boss. "Sir, help me. Some bastards, they jumped me." "They're still in there. You can catch them if you hurry," he pleaded. But instead of help, his boss delivered a brutal punch straight to his face. A vicious kick sent him sprawling onto the pavement. Jung Gai cried out in pain and confusion, calling for his boss. "Didn't I warn you?" The man's voice was dangerously low. "Stay away from fights with high school kids." Guy tried to explain, but only incoherent noises came out. His superior showed no mercy, kicking him again as he lay helpless on the ground. As Guy whimpered his apologies, Jiyeon and his friends watched from the shadows. "He acts like a big-shot gangster," Kang Doyle remarked with a scoff. "But really, he's just a pathetic nobody." He turned to Jiyeon. "Thanks." Then he nodded to the others. "You guys too." But Han Aram stepped forward, her expression serious. "Forget that. All of you need to get to a hospital, now," she insisted, but Doyle just brushed her off. "Nah, I just need a few days of rest." He started to walk away, looking to Jiyeon for backup. In a sudden flashback, a memory surfaced for Jiyeon. He wondered when he'd ever forget her. The one person who could make his heart stop, or race 1,000,000 miles an hour. Students filled the streets outside of school. Inside a classroom, a teacher's voice droned on. "Hey, wake up back there." Later, 2 girls cornered Han Aram. "Did you really give John a phone? Don't be ridiculous." Yenna cut straight to the point. "Are you planning to date him or something?" Aram hesitated, unable to answer. "Come on," Yenna pressed. "I know you like him, but Aram insists it's something far deeper than just dating." The other girl presses. "What are you trying to say?" She confesses to an unshakable pull, a desperate yearning to understand everything about Jabon's very soul. One of the girls scoffs, accusing her of being a two-faced liar, trying to seduce Jiyeon away. With a venomous tone, she reminds Aram of the history between Yana and Jibon. Han Aram desperately repeats, "We are just talking," in response. The sharp sound of a slap echoes as Yana strikes her across the face. "Stop playing your pathetic games," Yana snarls, her voice cold as ice. "I will never give Jibon to someone like you." With that final declaration, they turn and walk away, leaving Aram utterly alone. Han Aram's hand rises to her stinging cheek as she whispers the word in disbelief. "Deceptive." She was talking about Yana, wondering how she could show not even a hint of regret for what she'd done.